Thank you, everyone, and welcome to the Committee of Dundee City Council. First and foremost, we're going to start off with some sad news with the obituary for former, anyone? Is it you, Siobhan? For former councillor Tom Ferguson. I didn't have the pleasure of knowing Tom, but I do want to pass on my deepest and heartfelt sympathies to his family. I'd like to open up the floor for any members to say a few words.
Deputy Lord Provost Bailey Keenan, Bailey McPherson and Councillor Hunter wish to speak.
Bailey McPherson.
Thanks very much. I knew Tom for a very long time. Very, very sad at his passing. I knew him first before he was elected to the council, in fact, when he was a trade union representative, and I was at that time the finance convener. It seems like a very, very long time ago. And during the time I was convener of planning and transport, Tom was the deputy convener. And I can assure you there were many, many lengthy phone calls from Tom over the years, which I'm sure we can all attest to, that Tom was very passionate, and particularly, and to his great credit, about all things Lochee. He was a real man of his community. He very much loved Lochee, and he tried his best for everybody in his ward. So on behalf of our own group, our thoughts are with Tom's family at this very sad time. Thank you.
Thank you, Bailey McPherson. I think because we're doing group leaders, we'll just go with Councillor Keenan next. Thanks.
Okay, thank you for that. Obviously, Tom Ferguson, what can we say? He's such a character. Let me share a few of my memories with you all. Tom was a tradesman, a trade unionist, as was mentioned by Fraser there. He was a joiner of trade and had worked in a wide range of construction projects throughout Dundee for decades. Some of them being Whitfield, the Tay Road Bridge and Ninewells Hospital. Tom also worked overseas in the construction industry in Germany. And some of you may recall A Wiedersehen Bet as a cracking TV programme. Just imagine what that programme would have been like if Tom Ferguson, Mr. Dundee, was cast in his character on that particular programme. Tom obviously liked to talk. Everybody that knows him will know that for a definite. And I can recall Tom getting a bit of a ribbon about his phone bill. His phone was something that he used as his method of communication. Didn't write many emails to people, but phoned everybody he possibly could. So Tom took a real ribbon about his phone bill being £150 higher than any other councillor in the city at that time. And I didn't reform him in any ways at all, but he just continued to hit the business in that manner. It's how he got things done for people in Lochee. And it makes me reflect on today when I see the First Minister taking ribbon and taking absolute stick for £100,000 spent on going to a jolly at the football. And it just shows you that in politics we're all equal, but just some are more equal than others. As a tradesman myself, I can recall a technical conversation with Tom. And his knowledge in the construction industry, he was giving me advice on the point loading the mobile cranes and when they're in operation, and the construction of roads and the relevant axle weight for heavy vehicles. I'm quite happy to explain that to anybody if they want to hear your word with me after the meeting. It's true what they say that every day is a school day, and for Tom it definitely was every day a school day because he worked for many years as a technician in our schools. It's just as well that Tom wasn't a teacher, given that his mobile phone used to regularly make me smile when it went off inappropriately in the middle of meetings, because the tone of his mobile phone was baggy trousers. And if anybody can recall the lyrics to that song, it was all we learned at school was how to bend, not break the rules. Rest in peace, Tom. I know that you did your best as a councillor. You cared about the people that you represented, the ward of Lochee, and my thoughts are with your family at this difficult time for them as they come to terms with your loss. Thank you.
Thank you. Two lovely tributes. And I'll go to Councillor Hunter from the SNP group.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Lord Provost. On behalf of the SNP group, I want to pass on our condolences to Tom's family, friends and colleagues. As Bailey Keenan said, Tom was a character, and in the best sense of the word. My dealings with Tom were usually on licensing, where he would give both officers and applicants an absolute grilling on, particularly HMOs with his construction background, and would often leave officers and the applicants bamboozled with his knowledge and have them in knots. And it's probably typical of Tom that when he first came on, or when we first started doing licence committee, the pre-meeting was 9:30. Then it moved to 9:15, and it still is now at 9 o'clock. And that was because that hour wasn't even enough to give Tom his opportunity to grill officers before the meeting. And we would often run into licensing late because Tom was giving officers such a difficult time to make sure that we were making the right decision. I always had some interesting conversations with Tom. I'm not going to pretend I often understood some of the stuff he was trying to tell me, but I'd have great conversations with him, and he was always up for a chat and always wanting to have pass on the latest gossip and things like that. And last time I met him, which was a couple of years ago, it was exactly the same. Just absolutely wanting to know what all the gossip was and what he was missing. As has been said, he was a great advocate for Lockheed. He was passionate about the communities that he represented, and he was a great loss to the council when he left. So, as I said, condolences to his friends, his families and colleagues at what is a difficult time for them all.
Thank you, Councillor Hunter. We'll go for Councillor Scott, and then after that, Councillor McCurvin.
Thanks, Deputy Lord Provost, and I'd like to be associated with the remarks that have already been made and pass on my condolences to Tom's family. It hardly seems like 9 years since he was last a member of the council. And I knew him as a colleague mainly across the road. For those of you who don't know, the opposition groups all shared the same office space in the building on the other side of the road. And quite frequently, when I was in the office, there'd be a knock on the door and Tom would come in and tell me about all the plans he was hatching and what's the latest thing he was getting involved in. And after about 45 minutes of that, he would get up to leave and he'd give me a wink and gosh, don't say anything to anybody. But you know what? It was always for the interests of the people he represented. And I admired him greatly for that. He was a good man, and I'm saddened by his loss.
Lovely words, Councillor Scott. And on to Councillor McCurvin, please.
Yeah, I think through the contributions we've heard so far, communication was key to how Tom operated on a day-to-day basis. I first met Tom way back in the mid-1990s at a local Unison branch training. And even a first impression of Tom then, he had lots of stories to tell, and it was his mission to tell you. Didn't matter to Tom how long these stories were, or even what time of day or night you would receive a call to hear them. Tom gave you a full chapter and verse. Even in recent years, if you met Tom out and about in Dundee, he would always make time to speak to you. With a nudge, as Bailey Scott had said, a wink and a tap on the nose. That tap on the nose was code for secret information, and you were away to be briefed on it, irrespective. As I remember Tom, his character never changed over the years, but he always put off time to have a chat with you, with a cigarette in one hand and a tale to tell, and a cheeky smirk on his face summed Tom up perfectly. Thinking of Tom's family and all his loved ones at this sad time.
Thank you to all the members that have shared stories. I feel like I know Tom a little bit better, and he was sounds like a very good community champion that will be missed. So thank you for that. I think that will take us on to a minute's silence. Is that right, Roger?
Thank you, Deputy Lord Provost. City councillors, ladies and gentlemen, it's with great sadness that I have to report the death on 7th August of former councillor Tom Ferguson. Tom Ferguson was elected as a councillor for the Lockheed ward in May 2007 and continued to serve until 2017. Please stand, if you're able, to observe a minute's silence in memory of councillor Tom Ferguson. Thank you.
Okay, that takes us on to item 2.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Provost. Item 2 is the minutes for information and record purposes.
Do any members have any questions? Are the minutes agreed? Okay. Item 3.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Provost. Item 3, twinning. 3 deputation requests have been received from Gary Langlands on behalf of the Dundee Alexandria Twinning Association, from Mary McGregor on behalf of the Dundee Nablus Twinning Association, and from George Laidlaw and Sally Carris as a joint deputation on behalf of the Dundee Orleans Twinning Association and the Dundee Würzburg Twinning Association. Is the Council minded to hear these deputations? Deputy Lord Provost, the first deputation will therefore be Gary Langlands.
Well, that's a long walk. So I'm Gary Langlands, I'm Chair of Dundee Alexandria Twinning Association, known as DATA, and it's my view that twinning has changed considerably from what is presented in the report, and in fact is a cost-effective marketing tool for tourism in Dundee. Twinning associations were founded in 1993, completely run by volunteers who believe in the soft benefits of twinning: friendship, education, cultural exchange, diplomacy, and are working constantly to develop partnerships and relationships. DATA currently have an amazing committee of 11 with members in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s and beyond, covering disciplines like teachers, international product manager, an international manager, business unit leaders, and people who run their own businesses, as well as retired managing directors and others. We also have a choreographer, stage director, who is developing with over 60 young people on both sides of the Atlantic, a complete, unique 1-hour musical theatre production, performance linking Dundee and Alexandria through historic and twinning references. More about that at a later date. So Dundee Alexandria Twinning Association are instigating collaborations between the George Mason University in Alexandria and University of Dundee with crime policy and forensics. Also with Virginia Tech University and Abertay University in augmented reality, virtual reality, AI clusters and drone technology. A memorandum of understanding to develop beneficial projects for young people has been signed by Paul Fleming, the Head of Service for Education, Learning and Inclusion, and in Alexandria City Public Schools by the Superintendent, Dr. Kay Wyatt. Most importantly, I believe, for this meeting, we are also dedicated to bringing visitors to Dundee, and we believe that in-person collaboration brings the most benefits. For example, Alexandria have just had 140 Alexandrians in Dundee in the last few weeks to play a veterans, ladies and men's rugby match for the Mayor's Cup from Alexandria, the Lord Provost Salver for the ladies, and the Gavin Garden Quaich in memory of Gavin Garden. We carefully integrated with schools and communities through active schools to promote sport to our young people by inviting them to spectate. However, a critical statistic I would like to leave you with is from Visit Scotland, who say these visitors to Dundee over 5 days will have added approximately £140,000 to £210,000 in overall local economic benefit. Add this to the 80 plus visitors from Würzburg and over 40 from Orleans in 2026 alone, and this is the economic benefit to Dundee. Just imagine what impact we could have with some meaningful financial support from tourism resources. Any help from the members in this department would be very welcome. Thank you for your interest in twinning that can be meaningful, commercial, educational and diplomatic and brings these benefits to Dundee. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Does anyone have any questions?
Councillor Short has a question, Deputy Lord Provost.
I didn't see you waving there, Lynn. I'm not sure how I didn't see that.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Provost. Gary, I also met the Americans when they were here on the Wednesday, and we had an incredible event in this here chamber, and it was fabulous. One guy brought his golf clubs, and they all trotted off with the McDonald's vouchers, and I believe they were going on a pub crawl that night. I didn't see them through the whole event, and I believe you had a really successful dinner as well in Apex on the Saturday night. However, if you could perhaps sum up a little bit of the impressions that they made of the city while they were here. You've talked about the fact that, you know, this could be something that should be seen by our sort of tourism gurus when it comes to that sort of thing. So how can we sell that to them? Was it good?
Very good question, Councillor Short. Along with the mayor from Alexandria, the deputy mayor and councilman that was responsible for what they call sister cities, we call twin cities, they visited with the rugby players as well as a lot of the family and friends to spectate and to support what we were achieving. This is something that I believe we can build upon. Dundee now are looking to go over to Alexandria to replay and try and retain some of the cups. Dundee won the Mayor's Cup, so that was the main one, so we won that. That's fantastic. I'll gloss over the fact we lost the other two, but hopefully that'll be an impetus to compete again at a future event. It might be next year. I would personally prefer it to be 2 years from now, and then we bring them back over to Dundee 4 years from now. I think that's probably a more sensible time frame. I would say, however, that Alexandria Soccer Association are also very keen to come across to Dundee and work with Dundee and Dundee United. They might have been here this year as well, and that was the original plan. Can I only say thank goodness that didn't happen, because we were kind of busy with these rugby games. So we're looking to re-engage with Alexandria Soccer Association and get them across next year, Lynn. So I think, you know, this is the start of trying to build for the Twinning Association, certainly for Alexandria, build a regular dialogue and a regular cross-Atlantic visiting schedule that will not only benefit sporting events, but we hope to engage with younger people as well, which is vitally important.
Okay, thank you. And can I just put on the record my thanks for all the work I know that you put into the visit when they were over. You really did work tirelessly, you and the committee. So please pass my thanks on to everyone.
I'll certainly do that, and I should put on record my thanks to you, Lynn, for your support personally. So thank you for that, and others in the room that have helped as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Flynn?
Thank you very much, Deputy Lord Provost. Gary, I just have to say congratulations on what you did when the Alexandrians were here. I think over that week it was quite amazing. The enjoyment that came from seeing all the Americans here at different venues, and I had the opportunity to go to all the rugby games, thinking I might stay for 5-10 minutes. In fact, I stayed for them all to the very end. Yes, we won one but lost two, but again, the entertainment level and the attendance was incredible, and I think that just goes to show the benefits of twinning, and I think others will be mentioning that as well that come up in the future deputations. But I think the benefits of the twinning goes quite beyond that, and the thing we touched upon there of the educational connections and very much cultural connections. We've got similarities with Alexandria as we do with other the twinning associations. I think it's one of the benefits I see from twinning going forward is trying to create and grow them for the economic benefit of the city. So thanks very much for your contribution with regards to the recent events as well.
Any other questions from members or comments? I'll just make a brief comment that it was delightful to meet Mayor Gaskins and actually her entire family. It was lovely, and Gary and all the members of the committee did a wonderful had a wonderful visit and did so much work as volunteers and really put their heart and soul into it. You know, what's beautiful about Twinnings is that we live in a time where communities are getting ripped apart, and actually what we're doing is solidifying friendship, and that is just it's just wonderful and deserves a round of applause. I'm not sure if we give people a round of applauses, so we'll check that later, Roger. But thank you, Gary. There's no further questions.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Provost. The next deputation is Mary McGregor on behalf of the Dundee Nablus Twinning Association.
Deputy Lord Provost, councillors, thank you very much for this opportunity to speak on behalf of Dundee Nablus Twinning Association. I'm Mary McGregor, I'm convener of the association. We have a committee of 11. We have a paying membership of 162 people and 520 people subscribe to our free monthly newsletter. And we're very grateful for the £1,000 that we receive from the council against our costs, especially at this time when there's great pressure on council budgets. But obviously, we have to fundraise to continue our work. We've got monthly meetings of the committee, and we also hold monthly open meetings. For example, tomorrow we have Antonia Vardis, lecturer at St Andrews University, who is a member of the Salmud flotilla. He was kidnapped as part of the flotilla by the Israeli authorities, detained and brutalised before he was sent home. And in contrast, if you like, next month we have Dr. Saida Afuna from Anajah University in Nablus talking about the nature of education in Palestine. So while our aims are the same as the other twinning associations, that of building friendship and understanding between folk in all our cities, obviously our situation is very different. Our friends and our partners in Nablus are, as you're very well aware, living under what's becoming daily and increasingly brutal occupation. Armed Israeli soldiers parade through the streets of Nablus. Violent military incursions are frequent, often targeting the old city and the refugee camps. Only yesterday, I received news from friends of ours in Nablus that a boy has been shot dead at Askar refugee camp, a place we've visited and will visit again on our next trip, and a place where we've helped to fund local medical facilities. His name was Islam Ajuri. He was 14 years old. Not a statistic, but a child who should have had his whole life ahead of him. Another child victim, leaving heartbroken families and a grieving community. I hope we are never in a position where the murder of a child becomes normalised. Nablus is currently under siege. People are denied access to work, university and schools. And most recently, as you'll be aware from the news, armed Israeli settlers are rampaging through the West Bank. An illegal settlement has been constructed at Sama Nablus, which is on the very edge of our twin city. But life goes on. It goes on despite the occupation and in defiance of the occupation. Civic life goes on. And it's with absolute delight that I can report to the council that Nablus has elected its first woman mayor, Mayor Anan Atiri. And I'm grateful for the council leader, Mark Flynn, sending her a letter of congratulations and an open invitation to visit us in Dundee whenever possible. DNTA spends a lot of time speaking to community groups and being part of the community, linking groups and organisations here with those in Nablus. We work in schools and we've been expanding global citizenship for senior pupils in secondary schools. And as well as working with the other TAs, there's a lot of different activities that we're involved in, and I'd refer you to our website or sign up for our free newsletter. But our campaign to train nurses and midwives, which some of you have leaflets about, has received worldwide recognition. Our twinning with Nablus puts Dundee on the map globally. The Thread Memory exhibition at the V&A attracted 130,000 plus visitors from the UK and beyond. DNTA was involved in setting up that exhibition, and it would not have been brought to Dundee if we hadn't had that long-standing link with Nablus. And just last week, we were contacted by a university in Sweden asking us to be part of a European peace project. A similar letter has been sent to the Lord Provost, and I hope that perhaps the council can consider it at some time in the future. Again, this was based on the knowledge of DNTA's work in Nablus and Dundee's link with it. Economic benefits of twinning are something that this council is rightly concerned with. I'm sure that because of our reputation, beneficial economic links could be built with Nablus and beyond in countries who are supportive of our twinning link. We've tried in the past to engage with the Chamber of Commerce to no avail, and that included a request from Nablus Chamber of Commerce to come and visit, and a letter of introduction from Sir Vincent Fane. I hope someone from the Council could explore this further. We've continued to visit Nablus despite the difficulties over the years, and I can report that in November, the 3rd of November, 8 DNT members plus a councillor from Sheffield are going to visit our twin city. We bear the costs ourselves. There is absolutely no way we would put that burden onto the council. But I do have to say that it's sad that there has been no official visit from this council to Nablus since 1980. In the last few years, we've also struggled to bring any visitors from Nablus to Dundee, and this is primarily due to the UK authorities denying us visas, and we'd welcome any help from the Council in supporting visa applications. We really want to bring people over for next year's Dundee Together event. That's one of our priorities for next year. We could have Dabka dancers in the city square, which would be just wonderful. Finally, we are grateful for the political support that this council has shown for Palestine. The debate in this chamber last year was of extremely high quality and deeply moving. People in Nablus are well aware of it, and they consider their link with Dundee as precious and important, and are always looking for ways to enhance it. This twinning is extraordinary. It's humanitarian, and it's something that we all should be proud of. Thank you very much.
Okay, Mary, I'll ask you to stay at the podium. Is there any questions? Councillor Short.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Provost. Obviously, this is something that's very close to home to members of this group. And for me, you talked about the economics of it, but also I think it's the morals of it, not even the politics of it. And to think, hopefully, that as you said at the very end there, the people of Nablus are aware that they have friends here in Scotland that are prepared to be twins and stand strong with them, I think is a really, really important thing. And basically my question was, is it the economics? Is it the politics? Is it the morals? Or is it all kind of wrapped into one? I think many of us were still at school. Some of us not even born when we first went with Nablus. So we have a really, really long-standing relationship, and it's good to see that, along with the others, it has been cemented today.
Thank you very much, Councillor Short. 1980, it was 45 years ago, 46 years ago now, and it was at that time very much a political decision. There's no question about it. It took place in order to highlight the plight of the Palestinians. If anything, that need to highlight the plight over especially the last 3 years has become even more heightened. It's extremely important. We can combine the political with the moral and the economic. They are all bound together, Lynn. And I think that if more people could find the opportunity to come with us on one of our deputations, I think they would be able to see just how it could all be brought together in a meaningful and effective way. We were the first city in the world to twin with anywhere in the occupied West Bank. And that's held up across the world as something that Dundee is renowned for. And I think that it's something, as I said, that we should be proud of, but also that we can capitalise on. People come to us. People came to us from Berlin last year to ask about twinnings. We've connections with Boulder, Colorado, where they have a sister city project with Nablus. Sheffield have recently formed a sister project with Nablus, as have Brent Council. And they come to Dundee because they know that Dundee is the hub of where this started and is almost a kind of model of how this kind of twinning can go forward. And one last thing, Lynn, I think it's really important that twinning mustn't just be about council decisions. It's got to be about communities, and it's got to be about linking communities. And I think that's something that all of the twinning associations have done really effectively. And although it's harder for us, we do it as well.
And again, Mary, I think I'd probably be right in saying that you've been associated for a long, long time. I know that you've sat in these seats in the past, and I think it's a credit to you that you have been so involved. And thank you to you and the rest of the committee members as well for all that you've done.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Short. Councillor Keenan.
Thanks. I suppose we'll hear from the next deputation soon, and no doubt in that deputation we might be hearing some of the really nice things that go on in Twinning. And I suppose our ambition is that nice things would go on in Twinning for Nablus as well. And it's really sad that we hear about the real need for that humanitarian aid that needs to go in there to look for trained midwives and all the rest of it. And mere strength to your elbow, Mary, and your association in trying to lever that in there. It's heartwarming to hear that the association's touching out to many other people and getting them involved in the plight over there. I can recall a visit here in the chambers where it was an educational visit, and at that time there was many individuals that didn't get allowed to come out the country because of the restrictions that were there. I'm sure if they were here they would have enjoyed themselves, but when you heard about some of the horrific things that were going on years and years ago in their lives, it can't help but touch you, make you feel how bad it is and how absolutely fortunate you are yourself that you and me and my family are not living through that type of thing.
Absolutely.
It is absolutely horrendous, and let's hope that in a number of years' time we get to the stage where somebody's standing up on behalf, if it's not yourself, on behalf of the Twin Association saying, we had the rugby team over, we had this happening, isn't it marvellous? And we've got that links between industry and commerce within Palestine in here. Thank you. Thanks for all your work.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
And we have a question from Councillor Anderson online.
Thank you. Thank you, Deputy Convener. Mary, thanks so much for the huge amount of work that you do on this issue. Could you just tell us a bit more about the plans for the deputation to Nablus, and whether there is anything the Council can do to support you in this work?
Oh, thanks for that, Councillor. It's we're booked up, right? We have our flights booked, right? We are aware that we may lose the money on our flights because the situation in that part of the world is so volatile that flights may be cancelled again. We hope that when we get there, we'll get in at Tel Aviv. We don't know if that's the case or not. We may be turned back, but we're hopeful that we'll get through at Tel Aviv. We'll spend one night in Jaffa, and then the municipality will send transport for us to take us from Tel Aviv to Nablus. At the moment, there are at least 16 checkpoints and roadblocks between Ramallah in the West Bank and Nablus itself. So again, there may be difficulties. So even when we get there, we don't know. We don't know if we will get through to our twin city. The last time we were there in 2022, there was a siege as well. They lifted it for us. That was nice of them. 2 days before we were due to travel to there. So we got there in 2022. When we're there, we will be visiting the number of projects that we're involved with, including some of the nurses and midwives who have graduated through our Nurses and Midwives project. We have 7 who are away to start or restart in September. So we'll be visiting that. We'll be visiting the municipality. We will be greeted by the new mayor, and I'm really excited about meeting her. I think it will be a tremendous occasion, and bringing her the wishes of Dundee Council and telling her about the commitment that the council has made to this twinning and to Nablus in particular. We'll also be visiting Sebastia, a wee village just outside Nablus, which has recently received World Heritage status, which is frequently raided by settlers who try to take away some of the ancient artefacts. There's the tomb of John the Baptist there. There's many other ancient biblical artefacts that some of the Israelis want to take for themselves. We'll be visiting 2 youth projects. There's also a nursery that we've helped to fund to help get working mothers back into the workplace, run by the trade unions in Nablus. So we're going to visit that as well. The trouble is, I'm there for a week, and everybody, and we have friends there, as well as the officials and all of the official visits. There are so many people who will want to speak to us, because when we are there, we are treated as a very precious commodity. When I get to Nablus, I will feel safe because I'll be surrounded by people who love us, who care for us, and who understand that the most important thing that we can do as a delegation is to get back home safely and to tell the story, to change the narrative, to make sure that people fully understand what's actually happening on the ground there. I don't know if I've answered your question, Heather.
No, Mary, I just think it'd be really useful if the council could give you as much publicity as possible for the work that you're doing on that trip, and make sure that it is covered in the media in Dundee, so that people of Dundee know what we're doing.
Can I ask that happens after we come home?
Okay.
Just for security reasons.
Yeah.
It just would make, I'd love it to be right over the courier as a positive story, but please after we come home rather than before we get there, because that just highlights too many things.
That makes complete sense. Thank you.
Thanks, Heather.
Thank you, Mary. You're such a force and you do such amazing work yourself in the committee, and I think you've really highlighted true friendship that you and the city offered to the people of Nablus. And I would like to congratulate the Mayor of Nablus on her appointment and breaking the glass ceiling of being the first female mayor, which is wonderful. Again, we're hearing just how much heart is in twinning, and I think that's what's really beautiful, even trying to come over the barriers and challenges. So I think you all know my connection to Palestine. I'm not offering to Dubka dance at the Together event, but if you really can't get anyone, just call me up and I'm sure I can bust some moves for you.
Fantastic.
Okay, so thank you, Mary. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Provost. The final deputation is George Laidlaw on behalf of the Dundee Würzburg Twinning Association and Sally Carris on behalf of Dundee Orléans Twinning Association.
Can I start by adding my condolences to Tom's family? Tom was a ward councillor when I was head teacher at Mingus, and my fond memory of Tom always was, after a meeting, he would come and he would wink at me and he would say, "Aye, George, you ken what I mean?" And I would say, "No, Tom, I don't really." But Tom was a great guy and he did a huge amount of work for the Lochee ward. So that's to his family, and thanks very much, Tom. I'm George Laidlaw, Chair of Dundee Würzburg Twinning Association. We were first twinned with Würzburg in 1956, and the Twinning Associations have thrived since they were set up in 1993. Orléans and Würzburg are close, so we are able to develop strong sport, education and cultural links.
I'm Sally Carris, Chair of Dundee Orléans Twinning Association, known as DOTA. We've been twins since 1946, and it's one of the oldest twinnings that exists in Europe. We celebrate 150 years of twinning between us.
In the past year, Dundee Twinning Association, or Würzburg, hosted visits from a disability group, sports group, Citizens Kilt Walk, and Würzburg Pops Orchestra come next week. Get your invitations replied, please. And they visit Scotland. Estimate the visit of these 80 to 100 guests brings over £100,000 to the tourist economy. In September last year, 47 young musicians from Dundee schools were a huge hit at the Würzburg Stramu, which is the biggest street festival in Europe. £25,000 funding was raised by Phil McGregor so that the trip was open to all youngsters. We were guests of honour at Würzburg at the festival of the patron saint Kiliani in July, taking part in a parade and a pilgrimage. And we will again attend Stramu in September
And with our assistance, the Dundee Bells Choir will give 4 performances. And Dundee golfers and runners have just finished trips.
A group from Dota visited Orléans for the Joan of Arc Festival in May this year. And because of the 80th anniversary that we're celebrating, Dundee was the Twin City guest of honour, with many Scottish-themed events taking place. At our invitation, Dundee City Pipe Band and Dundee Gaelic Choir performed at several of the events during the festival. And continuing with the 80th anniversary, 2 artists with strong Dundee connections will represent Dundee at the annual Orléans Arts Society exhibition. And there is a wish to bring some French artists here, maybe in 2027 or 2028. Earlier this year, students from Grove Academy took part in a youth forum on water ecology with students from 6 other countries. And funding permitting, the school's senior orchestra will visit Orléans to work with the Orléans Youth Orchestra and give a concert. Links are being forged between schools in Würzburg and Orléans and Dundee schools. And these links and the visits can bring many school subjects to life. Lots of examples of that. A group from Orléans will visit Dundee in early September, in fact, the end of next week, to join in our 80th anniversary celebrations. And the Dundee Rotary Club will join us and has 10 French Rotarians attending as well. Over this last few months this year, we've led an exhibition of the 4 Association project, which many people may have seen in various venues across the city. Libraries, community centres, schools.
Today we need twinning friendship and understanding more than ever. In a world that has been turned upside down, only together can we strengthen the common human values that would unite us. We need to value and develop partnerships with our twin cities. Twinning makes us stronger. Together, as nations, regular visits to and from them strengthen our understanding.
The twinning associations welcome the support shown by the leader of Dundee City Council to twinning and the focus on economic development, particularly tourism. However, the education, sport and cultural links are also massively important. We're grateful for the commitment that Children and Families Service to twinning and to our European friends through Grove Academy and Dundee School's Instrumental Music Service, and for the support given by Leisure and Culture Dundee.
Finance is a great challenge in the current economic climate. The financial burden has increasingly fallen on the associations. Our partnership with Dundee City Council is very important. Assistance in finding financing supports are essential to reduce economic barriers to participation.
Yes, twinning associations are voluntary. We're all volunteers, and we could do with a designated officer identified within the support services department who would have responsibilities including activities relating to formal twinning and to appropriate support. Then we'd have a direct link without having to go to all sorts of different people.
Thanks for listening.
Can I just say what a wonderfully synchronised deputation that was? I think that's the most synchronised, smooth deputation I've ever seen, so well done. Questions from members. We have Councillor McCurvin is first. Or is it Sharp? Councillor Sharp.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Provost. I thought I was in Eurovision there. Is that why you're doing it together? Yeah. And I think that's the whole point, isn't it? I mean,
well, we work together.
Yeah, and also, you know, you grew out of a situation that we never want to see again. And, you know, 1947, that's even older than my mother. So, I mean, that goes back a long way. And it doesn't feel like 10 years ago that you were celebrating your 70th, which is just remarkable. Time certainly flies in these chambers. So my question is around the Twinning Garden, which is up in Swanee Ponds. I was very fortunate to join you on the day that the twins all came together and had a wee picnic in the park, and it was delightful. Unfortunately, I didn't have any cash, so I never got an ice cream, so I'll know for the next time. And the question is, would it be and can it be possible to expand upon the relationship with the park? I love the Twinning Roses that we have, and I was very fortunate to get an opportunity to learn how to play petanque that afternoon. And I know that for a long time the people of Dundee have been asking me for a petanque court, and this is something that perhaps might suit the garden. Is this something that you think would be useful to cement that relationship?
Can I say it was very poignant to have that meeting, because we were in partnership with the Eden Project, and in the same day the Nablus Association had to go indoors. So it just shows you that we were a bit worried about our situation. But we had a fantastic afternoon where we used, for those who are not aware, the Twinning Garden was created in 1991 to celebrate the 800th anniversary of Dundee. We are developing facilities there with the gardening department, and we hope to get the roses. We've started replacing the roses, and we've involved the local Maryfield and Coleside primary schools in the development. And I have to say, the picnic in the park, and thanks to those, because the leader of the administration was there, and Councillor Short, and we'd visitors from the German-British Association. So it went down really well, and we were delighted. And we hope to build on that next year by opening it to our partners across the city. It was such a success. And a wee aside, the superintendent of police said, you know, I handed her a friendship stone. We have a project of friendship stones, and if you go up there, you'll see the friendship stones left by our visitors, and we take them over to Germany as well. And the police superintendent said, well, it's nice, she says, being handed a stone. She says, I received one in a different way in her broth yesterday. So it was lovely. But we would appreciate your support, and we'd really appreciate. That's another area where we get tremendous support from council officers.
Thank you. I hope your mum's not watching, Lynn. And we'll move on to Councillor McCarthy.
Thanks. We've heard tonight about 3 deputations about the great work that the Twinning Associations do. For yourselves, you mentioned the sterling work you do with schools, but I'm aware that you also work with local charities in linking with the Twinning Association. So I'd just like to hear what kind of work you do with the charities.
Well, firstly, we are working with a group of women in Coleside who are raising money. We help raise money for the groups over to make sure it's barrier free, and they are raising money to go over, and they hope to share. Some common knowledge by visiting and build up relationships. We're also very happy that we've worked with the Grey Lodge settlement, who have taken youngsters out to Würzburg and brought them back. And if I just say as well, we have had visitors from Bray. There are 20 visitors from Bray coming over to the Hoolie, and that will bring a huge amount of money. We call them our twinning cousins. So it does widen with all the charities and the different people we work with, and we do a lot of money raising money for the groups. And I will say to the councillors to remember, and I know I've said this to the Children and Family Services, we're looking to collaborating, because Erasmus goes live next year, and we've got to make sure that we use our share of the funds, because not enough comes to Scotland.
Well, I would add to that we helped the Grove Academies about 3 years ago to use touring funding. So they had a trip for 40 pupils to Orléans. Cost them nothing, because it's totally funded by the touring system, but they needed a partner school. So we found them a partner school in Orléans, and a group went to Würzburg as well under the same system. So, you know, we're there to sort of oil the wheels sometimes.
Thank you. Councillor Mark Flynn.
Thanks, Deputy Lord Provost. I think the report tonight, I'm glad to see it here, and refresh the fact that we've got the Twinning Associations within the city, because I think we've had the 3 deputations from the 4 associations, and I think we've heard some really passionate speaking with regards to what they're doing for every locality. They've all got their own challenges, as Mary's touched upon. It's a completely different situation, and Billy Keenan's touched upon as well. It'd be great to see that come and form and evolve into something similar to what we're seeing from Alexandria, Würzburg and Orléans. And we wish for that day to come as soon as possible.
But I have to say, I have to thank every single one of yourselves and your volunteers that work with you, because I think without yourselves and the volunteers, the Twinning Association simply wouldn't exist. So I think there's big applause for every one of you. I don't think Deputy Lord Provost will allow me to do that, but I think it's deserved. And we'll just do that sort of thoughtfully. And also, I like to say, I have to be quite honest about you. When I first took over, I didn't really know much about twinning as a councillor. So I think that's again why we've got the refresh here with the report. It's actually bring it to the fore. And I've had the pleasure of convening a number of meetings with yourselves and trying to keep you calm and keep under control is the hardest part of these meetings, because again, we keep a tight ship with the timelines, but it never works. But again, I'd like to say thank you very much for your dedication and your enthusiasm. And I hope it continues in the coming years, and the ones that follow you as well continue that enthusiasm. Thank you.
Just thanks to the elected members and to the Deputy Lord Provost for listening to our deputation. Thank you very much. We really appreciate it, all four of us.
Our pleasure, but we still have one more question from Councillor Keenan for comment.
Thanks. Thanks for all the work that all the twinning associations do. I think I was involved with the Orleans Twinning Association about 25 years ago or something like that. Your message about finance and the look for a dedicated officer isn't a subliminal one. I heard it, so I've said it again. That's something that you look for. Obviously, finance is about an issue for council, and I suppose if I was an organisation that was funded by the council, I would always look at the council's budget proposals and their consultation just to see you're not on the hit list off that. But what I would say, if there was a glimmer of hope, is that if we get around to going for a tourist tax, then there would be a good reason for you to put your hand up asking for these things again, bearing in mind that you do bring tourists to the city. So watch the space, both spaces, one for the hit and one for the positive. And again, obviously, it's doubtful whether we've got the finances to do it at the moment, but let's try to keep it on the agenda.
Could I just say that as part of our 80th celebration, we're having a twinning fair in the city square. You may not have heard about it yet. I hope you have. Twinning fair, all four of us working together, Saturday the 5th of September from 11 till 2, and you can come. We've all got displays, examples of what we do. Just come and have a look and find out and ask questions.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, George and Sally. I think that it is fitting to have you last because we know that you've got a lot of events next week, and you've just said about the fair. You've demonstrated real innovation with the work that you're doing with the twinning. I think all twinning organisations have shown creativity, innovation, community, and just real heart towards the twinning cities. So I think that's wonderful. If you'd like to have a seat, and if possible, this is decades and decades of volunteering. I think it would be nice to give them all a round of applause. Thanks, Mark. Thank you. Is the report to be agreed? Sorry, I missed someone.
Bailey McPherson wishes to speak.
Thank you indeed. And as we move to the actual report, I do want to declare an interest. I'm a long-standing member of Dundee Nablus Twinning Association, and I more recently joined as a committee member of the Dundee Alexandria Twinning Association. I noticed that Gary Langlands, in his address to the City Council, mentioned that the committee has members in its 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s and beyond. And sadly, I'm in the beyond category, but nonetheless, I find the committee meetings extremely positive and constructive with the volunteers, just as is the case with Mary's, with George's, with Sally's committees in the other twinning associations, to be incredibly positive, people giving of their time for the benefit of the twinning fraternity, if you like, and the building of links between our city and our twinned cities. I think it's worth also maybe perhaps just very briefly mentioning, because it isn't alluded to in the report, we do have sister cities agreements with Dubai from 2004, and with West Dundee in Illinois from 2013. And it would be good to see links build there, as well as with Zadar, where we do have a twinned city agreement, but perhaps less activity than we have with the other twin cities. I have to say the speakers tonight were absolutely excellent and bring to life not just how eloquent they are and the hard work that their committees put in, but just how relevant twinning is in today's society. And if I can gently say, there is a paragraph in 4.9 that says it might be argued that twinning does not have as much relevance in today's society because of cheap international travel, more widely available, and better communications technology. Now, I would argue the opposite. I would say that in this troubled world, twinning has much more relevance today than it may have had in the past, in that the ability for people to visit twin cities is so much greater than, say, it was in 1946 when our first twin arrangement started in Orléans. And also planning events, as I think we all saw if we were involved with the absolutely wonderful visit of the rugby players from Alexandria recently. The planning of that, Gary and colleagues put in massive effort to achieve that. And the fact that we've got this communications technology nowadays means the planning of it with colleagues in Alexandria, or indeed in our other twin cities, is so much easier than perhaps it would have been in 1946. Twinning is, in my view, and George Laidlaw touched on it, it's more important than ever. And we certainly should be continuing to support as strongly as we can the twinning associations and our links with our twin cities and indeed with our sister cities as well. And I heard Sally Kerris's very eloquent request for a formal, if you like, linking point at the council. I think that's a very good one. And I think that's maybe something officers could perhaps take forward. So very grateful to everybody for such eloquent contributions tonight. It is genuinely appreciated, as is the very hard work that goes in on behalf of all the twinning associations. Thank you.
Thank you, Bailey McPherson. We have one final question for officers from Councillor Short.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Provost. So the first question is regarding funding opportunities. Obviously, there is funding that is rolled into the report tonight, but over recent years, we now have a member of staff that's incorporated with DVVA, which supports things like events at the steeple, etc. And so it was just to make sure that from that department, the information goes to the Twinning Association, because there's lots of good intel that comes through that relationship. And I think it's probably could be safely said that you are communities. This is a community thing, and they're dealing with people in communities. So I think that would be really useful if we could get agreement, I think, from City Development that person sits in. And also from City Development, we've heard about the economic bounce that is coming through from the Twinning Associations with regards to visitor stays, etc. And it was just to find out whether we took any kind of recognition of that. So when we know that we've got 140 individuals coming from Alexandria, are we getting that feedback from the hotels so that we can see how much that's adding to the actual local economy? Please.
Are officers in a position to answer that just now?
Yeah, we're happy to take that away and perhaps explore it with Councillor Shaw. I'm not immediately aware that we've done any analysis of the impact of the twinning associations, but I very much recognise what the colleagues who've spoken tonight have said. It is a very important thing for us, and we do very much appreciate it.
Okay, I think that would be great for you to stencil in, Councillor Short, but also maybe to all members if possible. Robin, thank you. So can this report be agreed?
Thank you, Deputy Lord Provost. The councillor asked to note that Bailey Kevin Keenan has resigned as leader of the major opposition group. the Council's instructions are requested regarding the filling of the following resultant vacancies: Scrutiny and Audit Committee.
Can I?
It's a pleasure to move George McIrvin.
I'll second that.
Okay, can I ask that the nomination is agreed?
Licensing Committee.
I move Bailey Helen Wright.
I'll second that.
Bailey Wright, okay. Agreed. Thank you. Another 8 months. That's agreed.
Personnel Appointments Subcommittee.
Move George McIrvin.
Agreed. Yeah.
Pension Subcommittee.
Move George McIrvin.
I agree.
COSLA Convention.
Move George McIrvin.
Seconded.
Everyone agree?
Dundee Partnership Management Group.
George McIrvin.
Seconded.
Committee agree?
Leisure and Culture Dundee Board.
Anybody want to guess? You got it, George McIrvin.
Seconded.
Does committee agree?
Thank you, Deputy Lord Provost. That concludes the business of the City Council.
Can I make a comment, please, on item 4? I've never heard my name called out so many times. I think it was at St John's in the 80s when last time it was come out that often. It would be remiss of me not to say a few words regarding Kevin's stepping down. I've known Kevin since I first attended a Baldragon branch meeting way back in the 1990s. I didn't just meet one Keenan, I met two. Kevin and his brother Martin. It was a fairly ominous baptism for someone wet behind the ears. Both were straight talkers, well-seasoned poker faces, and both liked a wee pint and a debate after formal business. For me, over the years, I've always found Kevin's counsel a great value. Did I listen to Kevin 100% of the time? No. Did I occasionally regret this? Yes. But we do, however, agree on many issues of the day, probably 95% of the time. One topic we don't agree on is football. After Saturday's result, it's probably best we park that particular subject at the moment. But in all seriousness, Kevin will be a big act to follow. Near 20 years shepherding and leading various Labour groups, past and present, is no mean feat. He's used his wide and varied knowledge and experience to the benefit of these groups over the years, collectively and to individual members. And he's earned much respect in that time. Taking over the reins will be made a lot more simpler, with Kevin publicly stating his intention to stand again at next year's council elections. From the multitude of positive comments made on social media over the weekend of the person he is, that could only benefit the good people of Strathmartin, the citizens of Dundee, and indeed the next Labour group. I'd like to thank Kevin. I'd like to end by thanking Kevin for everything he's done in the position of group leader for the last 2 decades.
Would you like to give a short reply?
Yeah. Just a short reply. Obviously, thanks, George, for saying that. And I did see a lot of very positive comments on social media at the weekend. I did obviously note the ones that said councillors are corrupt, or Labour councillors are corrupt. And my challenge to that individual is, let's go and visit Police Scotland tomorrow, and you put your case to Police Scotland and send me to jail if that's the case. Put up or shut up. That kind of allegation is made against councillors on a regular basis, and it's no justified whatsoever. People come in here with the best intentions, and the keyboard warrior think they're smart by putting these type of comments there. You know, I've said to anybody that's ever come along about people getting brown envelopes in council, if you know anything about that, I'd be the first to take it all the way with you. And I hope that every councillor, I'm sure that every councillor in here is exactly the same way. if there's corruption identified in any kind of way, bring it to the attention of officers and make sure that it's dealt with.
Thank you, Councillor Keenan. I'm wishing you all the best and good luck to Councillor McKerven. I think this is probably just an opportunity to open the floor to anyone else who'd like to say a few words before we close the committee. Councillor Flynn.
That's definitely a promise. Be remiss, Kevin, not to say sorry to see you move from there to there. Are you staring at me like that ever since I took over? Yes, I know it's going to be a better angle. No, I think I have to say, since I became leader, and I think even before then, I've always been respectful. I think every councillor within here has also had the respect for each other, and I think you and sort of promote that in many ways. I think we don't agree politically on some things, especially independence, but again, I think we've still got to cross these hurdles. We do have an alliance over a certain football team, sorry George, and also a particular musician, but I think it's great to see the fact that you're still staying on. I think that's going to be looking forward to seeing the campaign next year, and we'll have that going forward. But I think thanks for what you've done in the last 20 years as a councillor so far in the 15 years in opposition. But I look forward to seeing what George and sort of having that view with regards to maybe having a conciliatory way of trying to improve things for the people of Dundee primarily. That's what we're here for. We're all here to promote and support the people of Dundee, whether it be in the cost of living and all the decisions that are made elsewhere which affect this city. And I think in housing, again, let's have a collaborative discussion on that. And I'm quite open. My door's always open, as I said when I first sat here. I think my door's always open to any of the leaders, any of the politicians, any of the elected members who wants to come and speak to me. And I think that's always an open door for you. So please use it if you need to.
Thank you. And we have Bailey McPherson.
Thanks indeed. And as Kevin knows, because I spoke to him privately last week, I hold him in, I think actually George got the right word, a great deal of respect for Kevin. He's been group leader of the Labour group since 2007. I was about to say I celebrate 25 years on the council. Let's correct that. I commemorate 25 years on the council, actually on the 30th of August. And for most of that time, I think Kevin came back to the council in 2003. Kevin has been an ever-present figure, and he's always been very approachable, always easy to speak with, always easy to get along with. And I think everybody across the chamber, of whatever their political hue, would agree with that. Kevin's made a huge contribution. He was leader of the council for 2 years. He's chaired various committees, education back in the day, and more recently he's a very fair and competent chair of scrutiny and audit. And I'm very pleased, and I did say to him last week, I hope you're staying on the council, looking to stand again in 2027, because you've a vast amount of experience to offer the council and indeed the people of Dundee, and so I'm glad he's doing that. So many thanks, Kevin, for all you've done as leader of the Labour group, but we wish to look forward to working with you going forward for many years to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill McPherson. And Councillor Crichton.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Provost, and it would be remiss of me not to comment because I hold Bailey Keenan with a lot of respect. He's treated me with a lot of respect since I've joined the council, and I feel as a council, as a leader of his group for so many years, only a certain amount of people have done that, and it's to his huge credit personally. But I think the word that springs to mind with Kevin is fairness. I think on this council, he's not been dogmatic in terms of party positions. He's let people speak when they've needed to be heard who have not been his persuasion over the past few years. And I just think he's an all-round good man, and it's what this council and it's what this city needs. So on behalf of myself, I just want to thank Kevin for his service, and obviously he's continuing on, and to wish Councillor McKerven all the best for his new role, and we as the Liberal Democrat group look forward to working with him and his colleagues going forward.
Thank you, Councillor Crichton. This concludes. Pardon? Okay. This is my first committee that I've chaired, and it may be the longest Judges City Council committee. I think that's no reflection of me, but we're ending it on a really positive note, and it has concluded the business for today. Thank you.
Good evening, committee. If we can start with Laura, if you could introduce, please.
Thank you. Item 1, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations?
No declarations?
Yes.
Oh,
please.
sorry, I beg your pardon, Daniel. Would you like to come in and make your declaration?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Item number 2, non-financial interest. Angus Council is, of course, my employer. If there's any debate or discussion on the item, I will leave the meeting.
Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you. Item 2, shared environmental services agreement between Dundee City Council and Angus Council. Committee is asked to agree the terms of the note.
This is very self-explanatory, and it's all there in the introduction and the agenda, and it is running from July 26th until June of 2029, and then there will be a 1-year extension option. I think it's appropriate to thank the members of the team, as well as Angus, for coming to this mutually agreeable arrangement, and it's good to see that we can work together with our neighbours. Does anybody have any questions? So, is this agreed? Okay.
Item 3, on page 3, Dundee's Biodiversity Action Plan 2026-2030. This is for approval.
Thank you, Laura. I have to take my specs off. I'm getting old. I need varifocals or need to not read. A partnership-led action plan focused on restoring nature, improving biodiversity and connecting communities with the natural environment. This report seeks approval for Dundee's updated biodiversity action plan for 26 to 30 and draft nature networks. Our key points are that we define biodiversity as the variety of life, habitats and ecosystems, and recognises its importance in addressing climate change, highlights extensive partnership working across Dundee, including the Scottish Wildlife Trust, Tayside Biodiversity Partnership, RSPB Scotland, Woodland Trust, SEPA, community groups and universities, promotes habitat enhancement, species conservation, nature recovery and increased community involvement, and includes examples of citizen science and community engagement initiatives, includes the Urban Relief Project, which gathers information on biodiversity and residents' experience of green spaces. Do we have any questions? Yes, we do. Michael Crichton, you have a question, please.
Thank you, Convener. I really welcome the objectives of this action plan today, but I want to ask officers if they could give committee some assurances about deliverability. The report states that the implementation contains within existing budgets, and a few of these actions actually need to secure external funding. What is the contingency plan if the external funding does not come or is unsuccessful?
Okay, can I pass that over to you, please, Mr. Boyle?
Yeah, thanks, Convener, and thank you for the question. Councillor Crichton, 2.12 of the report notes the progress on the actions will be reported annually to this committee and will be incorporated into the reporting cycle. A lot of the issues that are detailed within the report are predicated on external funding. We can't give any assurances beyond the objectives that are listed within the plan to meet those challenges, but we'll do our best with the challenges we've set. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Boyle. And next, we have a comment from Councillor Anderson, please.
Thank you, Convener. It's great to see this report come together. I just wanted to, make the point that the whole shift with NPF4 was to ensure that we didn't just protect the existing biodiversity we had to actually enhance biodiversity. So instead of asking how many bats live around here, we have to say, what can we do with this development to make sure that more bats want to stay here? So it's really good to see this coming together. I did have a comment. I'd be happy to speak to the officers. You've got that great move about more biodiversity in gardening. And I know that I was involved in a bid a couple of years ago about working with gardens in Dundee, trying to get 200 gardens to adopt gardening techniques that supported adaptation, enhanced biodiversity, and certainly the Maxwell Centre, which will be well known to the officers, had a lot of details about how we might go about doing that. So it would just be great if the officers spoke to the Maxwell Centre and captured some of their ideas about how we make sure the gardeners of Dundee support us in these endeavours.
Yeah, pass over to Mr. Boyle, please.
Thanks, Convener. Thanks, Councillor Anderson. Yeah, happy to have that conversation with the Maxwell Centre, and you'll note within the report there's actually a case study at the back of the report which celebrates some of the positive work that the Maxwell Centre are doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Boyle. And yeah, I think the report is really, really great in that it does not just draw pictures and paint pictures, but it's actually there in pictures, which is always a bonus, as you'll know. Councillor Cruikshank, I love my pictures. Next question is from Mr. Councillor Flynn, please.
Thanks very much, Convener. I have to say it's a very good report, and I think the actual plan itself is very challenging and ambitious, which is like what we actually like to see, to be completely honest. I think we don't have ambition to actually do what we can do for the climate is really probably the wrong thing. I just want to try and understand with regards to citizens of the Dundee actually understanding what we're trying to do. And can you maybe give us some examples how you're communicating with them to make sure we get that messaging across? I know it's actually in the report, but again, just highlight the issues with that and the positivity that comes from that, from our sort of campaigns.
Thanks. Yeah, could you come in, please, Ms. Conroy?
Thanks, Convener, and thanks for the question, Councillor Flynn. So just to confirm that there has been substantive consultation undertaken in relation to biodiversity in recent months, mainly in relation to the Dundee Draft Nature Network, which is now presented as finalised to Council. So there were lots of opportunities for the public to engage on biodiversity. Within that, a GIS story map has been put together on a ward basis, so that's available now online. There was online surveys and drop-in centres for the public to attend. So we also work with partners, for example, RSPB. There was events held in the Central Library, the local climate cafe, so there's been extensive consultation just to get the biodiversity message across to the public. Thank you.
I believe that's all the questions now. So is this report agreed? Okay, thank you.
Item 4 on page 77, Dundee's Local Food Growing Strategy 2026 to 2030. This is for approval.
So this strategy is a statutory refresh aimed at increasing opportunities for residents to grow food locally while ensuring compliance with national legislation. The report seeks approval of Dundee's refreshed local food growing strategy following the statutory 5-year review required under the Community Empowerment Act of 2015. The Council has a statutory duty to maintain allotment waiting lists and ensure sufficient allotment provision. Nationally, demand for allotment continues to exceed supply, with many authorities reporting waiting lists exceeding 1,000 people. The updated strategy sets out how Dundee will support community food growing, allotments, community gardens and wider food growing opportunities across the city. And I have a question from Councillor Coleman, please.
Thank you, Convener. I very much welcome this strategy, and particularly given the progress that has been made in expanding community food growing across Dundee. And I wish to give particular praise, as mentioned in the report, to Campy Growers. Bailey McPherson and I actually had the chance to visit again recently to see the great work undertaken and enjoy some fantastic strawberries. If you've not had the chance to go, I would certainly recommend it. However, the figures on allotments are quite striking. We have 509 plots, but 529 people on the waiting lists, which is more than double the statutory 50% threshold. Can officers please give us an indication of how many additional plots we believe are actually required to bring Dundee back within the statutory threshold, and whether one additional allotment site proposed in the action plan is expected to be sufficient to achieve that? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Coleman. I'll pass over to Mr. Boyle.
Thank you, Convener, and thank you, Councillor Coleman, for the question. You're perfectly correct in stating that we've got a requirement to provide more allotments. In fact, that's a statutory requirement under the Community Empowerment Act 2015. You'll note at 4.3.1 of the report, it talks about the recent APSE survey into the state of the UK's allotments, and it found that actually 31% of local authorities had waiting lists over 1,000 people. We don't have that. We have 529 within Dundee. At the last time we reported on allotments to committee, we were actually under the threshold that the Community Empowerment Act requires. But we have got a commitment written large within the plan that talks about the requirement to identify a new allotment site to cater for those who are really keen to get on the kind of ladder of getting an allotment. It's difficult to explain in detail the nature of the different figures because it fluctuates from year to year, but we've recently introduced a digital database which allows those who are still retaining an interest to note that interest with us as a council. We have just under 530 just now. That could fluctuate next year down the way or up the way. But I think the main thrust of what the strategy is talking about in relation to allotments is identifying the need to create more expansive provision for allotments within the city. Thanks, Convener.
Thank you very much, Mr. Boyle. Of course, an allotment is a huge commitment, and the fact that we have community growing spaces, for example, Foxglove Gardens and Tayview Gardens, and also the addition in the back of the report of the allotments in Arkley Terrace. It's not always just having your own allotment, but I know that you'll be working hard to beat that figure and bring more forwards. The next question is from Bailey Scott, please.
I have an observation first, please, Convener, and then a question. My observation is in respect of Appendix 2 and the community growing spaces. And I know it's not an exhaustive list and doesn't capture all of them, but it would be nice to have seen Queen Street Community Garden and Shield Street Community Garden mentioned there. They're both planted out and maintained by Grove Academy pupils and brownies and Sunday school groups. And although Queen Street Garden is mentioned in the list on the subsequent part of the report, it'd be nice to see them mentioned in here with a narrative about all the good work that they're doing there, because they have a herb garden and they've got veg growing and they've got forestry fruits as well that are coming through. So it would be nice to see them mentioned with a narrative there. If that could be included in the final report, that would be good to see. Thank you.
Yeah, I see nods of approval, and it sounds like I need to get my bus pass out and get myself down the ferry to see them. So I will make that trip. Might even get to the castle as well. Your substantive question then, please.
Thank you, the question is in relation to the section that deals with private gardens. In the report that the current plan, which you can see on the council's webpage, talks about front gardens in the UK, 1 in 4 are completely hard standing. That's on the one that's on the website at the moment. It's not repeated in the report here. But I've noticed as I go about Dundee, more and more often I'm seeing back gardens totally hard standing as well. And I can understand the front garden being like that because people quite rightly want to park their vehicles off-road. But in respect of back gardens being hard standing, I just wondered how are you going to overcome that and meet that challenge of encouraging people to use their gardens more productively for growing food, because there doesn't seem to be a particular action point in the table of actions that specifically deals with that challenge that we're likely to face.
Mr. Boyle, if you can pick that up, please.
Yeah, thanks, Convener. Thanks, Bailey Scott, for the question. Yeah, I think Bailey Scott identifies an interesting point within the dilemma we face when we're trying to provide this additional food growing capacity. On one hand, we've got 529 of those who are waiting on a list to get onto allotment because they're desperate to have that growing space. And on the other hand, we've got those who've got private gardens who'd rather use them as a hard stand and maybe understandably for a car drive rather than food growing. So yeah, absolutely the challenge is on us as officers to take that forward. We have got a very successful communities team, as I'm sure Bailey Scott will be aware, who work with our environment team to spread that message, and we'll use this strategy to help to support that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And next we have Councillor Black, please.
Thank you, Convener. First thing I want to do is say thank you to Roger Menny and his team of clerks for the new numbering system in the papers, which made it much easier for me to make that leap to page 77 that you asked us to do a few moments ago. It really helps. It certainly helps me anyway to be able to find my way around more quickly. What I would like to say about the report is I want to pick out the bit that you've written about Campy Growers. Campy Growers is an absolutely astonishing success and an inspiring place to visit. And I've been to see Campy Growers. I've been in their greenhouses. I've been in their orchard. I've tried to rescue my dog from their pond. And altogether, it's a real success and shows what you can do with a redundant area of a park. But it also inspires and employs volunteers. And it's an organisation which I think requires more volunteers so it can do more with the fantastic piece of ground that they have. And I believe they also look for board members from time to time. And my question is, when will you yourself, Convener, next go to visit the Campy Growers?
So I have been recently, went up to see Campy Growers, and I have to admit, it's very difficult not to come away having getting force fed. Don't know, I think it was Councillor Coleman said that he got strawberries. I got very weird looking cucumbers and great big huge elephant garlic and everything to take away. So Campy Growers are definitely forthcoming with giving away their goods. So I would certainly say everybody should have a wee look to go up and see them. Definitely go not to see them again in the future, because I think it's important to reflect that what they can do is they can grow throughout the year with all the different kit that they've got set up. I think it's a really, really great place and brilliant to see them actually now here in the city. And I think the next step is looking at places like community gardens in Edinburgh, where they started doing things like growing and selling breads, etc., from what they've been growing. So there is next steps within Campy Growers that I think can be explored. But first and foremost, getting them sorted and getting their feet on the ground. They have great support, obviously, from the department, because they have an officer that genuinely loves that place to the bone. So it does make a huge big difference that they've got someone up there that is very much that is their way of living and growing. So it's fantastic. Was there a question for the officers as well, or was it just for me?
No, I just wanted to say nice things about Campy Growers.
Okay, brilliant. You might get asked to be a board member if you're not careful. And next we have a comment from Bailey Keenan.
You know, I'll not take the credit for any of the growing that goes on in my garden. I cut the grass and occasionally water the greenhouse. Tomatoes, some of the tomatoes actually came from Campy Growers, and I should go back and make a complaint because I've not really come to very much this year. However, I suppose as we'll look at growing, and if we've got a need for more allotments, then I would suggest that we start looking at the ground that sits at the back of many houses. Many of the areas in Curtin and St Mary's have got huge plots of land that are, you can access them, but the demand from housing to get in and cut back the vegetation that's there, or trees that are growing in these areas, are obviously a cost and a burden to housing. And if we were offloading that into and making good use of it for somebody to have an allotment there, I think it'd be good use, and obviously save the rent payers a bit of money with a bit of luck as well. That's just waste land at the moment. So, it'd be good to put it in, and what would it need for what to sort of prime that? If it was just a case of perhaps going in with a digger and turning the land over for a bit just to get the thing started. So I would make a plea for officers to have a look at that and see whether they could take a bit of burden away for the housing revenue account.
Thank you, Bailey Kane. Before I pass over to officers, the only thing I would say is I think what they did during the war was turn over these areas that were there at the time, because they were growing at that point, but they hadn't met Mrs. Thatcher by that point, and now the titles are here, there and everywhere. So I think maybe one of the biggest issues might be that the titles are now split, so it would take a lot to make that actually happen, but I will check that with officers. And the other thing is, I believe it's in there about the corners. which have been used successfully by some of the community groups. So there has been a slow burn, at least using those corners.
Yeah, thanks, convener. I'll pass on to Catherine in a second, but of course we're going to explore every opportunity we've got to develop growing, and I think if we can make that more local, the better. I don't know, Catherine, if you want to add anything.
Thanks. It was just that definitely we want to do more of this, and we work with our communities colleagues to support residents who want to make this change in the back areas where they live. What can be challenging is just getting a general consensus and agreement with residents to do that, but we do work to support and facilitate where we can. Thank you.
You looking to come back in again, Bailey Keenan?
Yeah, it was just in relation to title. I do recall council housing department sending out letters to people not that long ago, telling them about they were the few superior for much of the land that was around the housing. So it would be useful if that could be visited, so as that if there is an opportunity for the land to be developed, then it could be.
Okay, thank you very much. It's something presumably we'd have to take up with Mr. Many and his team, but I don't see any more questions. So is this agreed? Agreed. Oh. I have Deputy Lord Provost, you have a question?
We have a 2-minute comfort break after this. I don't know if you're there.
Yes. But are we agreed with this report? Yes. Thank you. Okay, that's the business now, everybody. Thank you.
Well, 10 minutes, that's okay.
Okay, welcome back and welcome to the City Growth and Infrastructure Committee. Give the first item, please, Laura.
Thank you. Item 1, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations?
Just leave a minute for declarations online and in the room. Okay, I don't see any coming up, so we'll just move on, please.
Item 2, Civic Government Scotland Act 1982, street names. Committee is asked to agree the terms of the note.
Any comments, or can this be agreed? Don't see any requests to speak, so I'll take that as agreement. Thank you. Next item.
Item 3, on page 3, annual road safety and 20 miles per hour progress report. Committee is asked to agree the recommendations.
So this report provides an update on progress towards the national road casualty reduction targets for 2030 and the ongoing implementation of 20 mile per hour speed limits. It outlines the Council's proposed programme of road safety improvements and includes an update on the monitoring and evaluation of the School Streets initiative. And I believe, Councillor Crichton, you've got the first question.
Thank you, Convener. Can officers explain a little more about the prioritisation of the 20 mile per hour programme scheme and how it's been determined? Appendix B distinguishes between schemes being delivered in 26-27 and those programmes for 27-28, and a further list simply described as future schemes. My question really is to say what is determined which areas fall into each of these categories, and really importantly, what is the anticipated timescales for delivering these future schemes, and are officers confident on these that these can be funded?
Thank you for the questions, Councillor Crichton. I'll pass it on to Mr Mullen, please.
Thank you, Convener, and thank you to Councillor Crichton for the question. In terms of the question in regards to how 20 mile an hour zones have been prioritised in terms of the rolling programme, these are usually based on a combination of factors that's kind of highlighted in the report, which is on sort of collision data, information we get on existing speed traffic data, councillors, members obviously highlighting concerns in areas as well, and these have been put through as a programme on that basis in terms of the number of requests, and it's something that we'll continue to review as well. In terms of the programme that's been set, obviously this has been to committee kind of last year, and it's a rolling programme. There is funding that we're looking through our active travel tier 1 to help support the delivery, and this will be for the next 2 years, and following that we're available that there'll be further external funding to help progress that and complete the programme of 20 mile an hour zones.
Thanks very much, Mr Mullen. Does that answer your question, Councillor Crichton, or would you like supplementary?
Supplementary, if I may, Convener. Yeah, thank you. In terms of the kind of future funding, I'll obviously I appreciate Mr Mullen's response on that, and I will probably bring that up at a further date. And just a comment to say this is a really important rollout. I think the difference between if a car hits someone at 20 or 30 is huge, and I think I commend everyone in this room, or virtual room, should I say, in doing everything we can to get Dundee to where we need it to be.
Thank you for those supportive comments, Councillor Crichton. I think we all appreciate, as you say, how important it is that we limit speed limits in these areas which are largely residential to prevent accidents happening anyway, but in particular children who are probably most at risk, especially at those speeds. So thank you very much for those supportive comments. Bailey Scott, please.
Thanks, Convener. This time, 3 years ago, we considered a report that told us about a change in the way that PB squared was calculated, and all the pedestrian crossing requests at that time were reassessed. And one street that I was particularly interested in was Brook Street west of Grey Street. That was had exceeded the PB squared for intervention, and it wasn't considered at the time because it was thought that a decision by a Network Rail to electrify the line, the railway line, might result in the removal of some of the bridges in Brodie Ferry, which then would have an impact on traffic movement in Brodie Ferry. But 3 years on, 4 of the locations below that location have all had pedestrian crossings or are about to have pedestrian crossings. They've all got a lower PB squared ratio than the location I'm talking about. And we've heard nothing from Network Rail about what their plans. So my question is, if news from them about what they intend to do isn't imminent, could this location please be revisited and looked at as to whether it would be possible to site something there?
Thanks very much for the question, Bailey Scott. Mr. Mullen.
Thank you, convener, and thank you to Billy Scott for the question. Yeah, this is something I'll look to review. As far as I'm aware, Network Rail and their electrification programme is still progressing, and so it's something that I'll need to pick up with Network Rail as well before coming back to yourself.
Thank you. Councillor Hunter, please, comment on the question.
Yeah, so it's to do with the school street zones. So first of all, just want to welcome some of the figures in here. I think obviously in 8.3 it talks about the survey work undertaken during 25 identified an overall decline in compliance level. So I suppose that's the bit that we just want to know a bit more about. What does that look like? What is the work that has been done to try, obviously schools just went back last week to try and reinforce that message. But my comments just generally on top of that is that, there's a lot of good work going into this. The priority is making sure that our young people, when they go to school, are going to school safely, but there are no, serious injuries or worse. So commend the work that officers have done in coordination with Police Scotland. But I think it'd be useful to have some of that information just about how it's working and also what the plan is for the current time where schools have gone back, to make sure that especially new parents are aware of, the restrictions that are in place and the work to do to ensure that they know how to safely get their young people to school.
Thanks very much, Councillor Hunter, for those important points. I'm sure we can pick that up and pick round elected members the work that's ongoing. Mr. Mullen.
Thank you, convener. Thank you, Councillor Hunter, for the question. Just in terms of the school street enforcement, I did note that there was a decline in compliance levels at a number of the schools, and that was surveys that's been carried out by members of the Sustainable Transport team. However, in this quarter, we have noticed there has been a bit of an improvement in levels, which has really been promising. The police have also made a commitment to carry out enforcement patrols across the city to help improve compliance levels, and they are supported again by our parking enforcement team. So they've made a bit of commitment that they're looking to attend each of the schools at least once within the term time, and we will provide that support as well through our enforcement team. In terms of just safer routes to school in general, we have issued a number of safer routes to school leaflets as well, have also been issued to about 98% of the schools across Dundee, and that map provides parking site locations, walking buses informations, safe crossing points, etc. And again, we'll continue to engage with the school as well and how we can support it.
Thanks very much for the answer, Mr. Mullen. I don't see any further comments or questions, so can this report be agreed? Thank you. Next report, please, Laura.
Item 4 on page 23, variation to city centre permit parking scheme. This is for approval.
So this report outlines a proposal to slightly extend the boundary of the city centre parking scheme to support city centre residents. Councillor Lynn, please, first.
Yeah, thank you, convener. There's a couple of things in my ward this year that I'm especially pleased about, both parking related. The first was the extension of the football parking zone to include a number of streets within my ward, which I felt had been unfairly omitted at the inception of this scheme. And the second is this item on tonight's agenda, particularly as it relates to the inclusion of Wishart Place within the city centre parking zone, although I'm also pleased for the residents of the other streets which have also been added. For those of you who are unsure where Wishart Place is, it's a large residential block with the blue roof, which is visible from many parts of the city. Very distinctive building. I've been trying for the best part of a decade to have Wishart Place included in the city centre parking zone in response to the many representations I've received from residents over the years, and also really because of my own incredulity that it wasn't included in the first place, being situated to the west of the Wishart Arch, as stipulated in the original traffic order, and being an integral part of the city centre. Anyway, there's no need to re-argue that point, thanks to this agenda item, which I'm fervently hoping will be agreed by councillors. It's It's not an exaggeration to say that the people I've spoken to about this, who are car owners, are absolutely delighted that their lives will be made so much easier and less costly. So really pleased. And I have a quick question. If this is approved, for the 5 areas or 5 streets, obviously not Swishart Place, will residents be able to apply immediately for a permit, or will there be a period of time to allow for administrative arrangements to be made? Thank you, Convener.
Well, thank you, Councillor Lynn, for those comments, and for that question to Mr. Mullen. I'll just pass over.
Yeah, thanks, Convener, and thanks for the question, Councillor Lynn. Yeah, members of the public will be able to apply, imminently, maybe a couple of weeks just to start this up from administration, but there won't be a long lead-in time for that.
That's great, thanks.
Thank you very much. Bailey McPherson, please.
Thanks very much, Convener. And like Councillor Lennon, I'm very much welcome this report. My issue is at the opposite end, obviously, of the city centre parking scheme area. And for a long time, I had argued that Westport, in fact, part of the report doesn't really get the Westport correct. Part of Westport's already in it. The bit east of Temple Lane, but the bit west of Temple Lane, plus the very small Johnson's Lane and a few blocks in Old Hawk Hill were not included. And it's an equity thing. Just like Councillor Lynn had some incredulity that Wishart Place wasn't included, I couldn't see why half of the Westport was and half of the Westport wasn't. It just didn't seem fair. And this brings this equity to it, so I'm very grateful. I did ask for one other block on Hawk Hill Bypass to be included, which hasn't been, but you can't win everything, can you? The point really, though, is that the substantive part of residents' requests have been listened to, and I'm very grateful to officers for doing so. Thank you.
No, thank you very much for your supportive comments, Bailey McPherson. And I would note that there are delegate powers within this report to make tweaks to the future. So this would allow anomalies in the future to be tied up if officers felt that was appropriate. But again, thank you for your supportive comments. Councillor Short, please.
A little bit of an echo chamber this evening, because I have exactly the same points of view as Councillor Lynn and as Bailey McPherson. Obviously, from a ward councillor point of view, myself, Georgia, and Councillor Lynn obviously share that area, and we've all, I'm sure, had representations from members of our constituency ward. Unfortunately, I have one member who sold her property and left, so not ideal for her, but good for those who are still there. And going back to my previous employment, I did argue because I looked after the properties above the Byzantium restaurant as it was at that point, and like Bailey McPherson, I could not get my head around why one part of it was covered and one wasn't. So this is a really good win for everybody. So well done for seeing the viewpoints of everybody, and I'm sure everybody would be delighted. Having said that, I have seen on social media that people think that there will be a push out. So I guess the ultimate thing is we need to encourage more people to come in public transport and not do the stride into work and park on the outskirts of the city.
Thanks very much for your comments, Councillor Short. We'll try and ride this wave of positivity through to the end of the committee. To paraphrase Bailey McPherson, you can't win them all, but it does seem to be very popular with members tonight. So thank you. I don't see any further comments, so can we take item 4 as agreed? Okay, thank you very much. Next item, please.
Item 5 on page 25, tenders received by Head of Design and Property for approval.
So this item is seeking approval to accept a tender report for the design development relating to Strathmartin water resilience connections. Project aims are to deliver on improved flood resilience, active travel, improved links to schools, improved road safety and increased biodiversity. I note that there is an active planning application in relate to this. So I don't intend to say too much, but of course members are welcome to if they wish. Councillor Coleman, please.
Thank you, Mr. Convener. Of course, I appreciate there's a live plan application as well. However, committee is being asked to approve expenditure approaching £1 million to take the project from River Stage 3 to 4 technical design. Given there is only a single delivery partner under this framework and therefore no comparative tender shown in the report, what assurances can officers give the committee that the £846,886 contract price represents good value for money?
A very fair question, Councillor Coleman. I believe that the escape framework supports this, but I'll pass over to Head of Design Properties, Mr. Martin.
Thank you, Convener. Thanks for the question, Councillor Coleman. So in terms of the procurement route for this specific project, there's obviously it's quite specialised and there's a limited amount of resource out in the market. Hence why we looked at the various procurement routes and derived the escape framework for the initial works. Obviously, in terms of that specialism, the performance that's carried out, we'd look to take that on. And in terms of the value of the works, the contractors and consultants that are involved in the framework have pre-bid those to be on the framework, providing that competitive tension when they're appointed. So from that point of view, in terms of the quality, the competence and the level of finance, gives us the confidence that we're getting value for money for this particular work stream.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Councillor Coleman, does that adequately reassure you regarding the value for money aspect?
Yes, very much so. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Black, please.
Thanks, Convener. This project, and I think I can say this without fear of breaking the planning rules, is potentially transformational. It can also show the way to other areas of the city and what can be done with the water which surges under our streets. And I think I'm really pleased to see this going forward to the next stage. My question for officers is, it's not entirely clear from the paper in front of us what we are asking Balfour Beatty to do. What does the REBA Stage 4 design actually involve? And if you could just give us a short description of what we're asking Balfour Beatty to do, I'd find that very helpful.
Thank you, Councillor Black. Mr. Martin.
Thank you, Convener. Thank you, Councillor Black, for the question. So in terms of the work that's been done to date, the initial consultation work, the conceptual designs, and just the very early stages of the scheme designs have been carried out. And essentially what we're looking to have approved tonight in the report is taking that scheme design on, getting into the detailed design, and that would then carry the project through to tender stage. So essentially that would have the detailed construction drawings available for pricing and potentially then a further phase for the actual construction of the works.
Thank you. Does that answer your question, Councillor Black?
Thanks, Convener. That definitely helps, and I'm excited by this project. I think it could be a wonderful thing for the area and for the city. So thank you.
No, thank you. I don't see any further questions or comments, so can item 5 be agreed? Thank you. I'll take that as agreement. Next item, please.
Item 6 on page 29, Eastern Primary School windows, summer 2026. This is for noting.
Can this be noted? Thank you. And next item, please.
Item 7 on page 35, Craigie Barnes Primary School, roof replacement, phase 5. This is for noting.
Can this be noted? Okay, that's the business of city growth and infrastructure. Thank you.
Okay, over to you, Willie, please.
Okay, thank you. Firstly, are there any declarations of interest?
Don't see any. So it's move on, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. There being no declarations, takes you on to item 2, Minute of meeting of the Pension Subcommittee and Pension Board, which is there, page 3. You're asked to know this minute.
Just take as agreed. Questions? Take as agreed. Thank you, Willie. Next, please.
Thank you. That takes you on to item 3, the Agenda Note Forces Children's Rights Charter, which is at page 1. This item has been placed on the agenda by Councillor Duncan.
Councillor Duncan, would you like to speak to it, please?
Yes, thanks, Convener. I wonder if officers could circulate my motion, and as you say, I'll speak to it whilst they're doing that. Yeah, I'm pleased to move the motion before committee today asking Dundee City Council to endorse and adopt the Forces Children's Rights Charter. Dundee has got a proud connection with our armed forces community. We recently had the Freedom of the City, for example, for them, and we rightly recognise the contribution made by serving personnel, reservists and veterans. But it's important when we talk about the armed forces community, we also recognise the experiences of their families, and particularly their children and young people. Children from regular reservists and vets families can face circumstances that most other young people will never experience. By the nature of their parent or parents' employments, being in the armed forces, you know, the parents might very well be deployed away from home from time to time, and that could mean a lot of upheaval for children who get wrenched away from schools, family and friends. So for some forces families, there is a difficulty with this, the mobility that comes with the demands of their service. None of this means that forces children should be defined by challenges, of course, far from it. They often demonstrate tremendous resilience and adaptability. But we should recognise that their circumstances can be different, and that our schools and other council services need to understand these circumstances. And that's why I think the Forces Children's Rights Charter is so worthwhile. The Charter is fundamentally about listening to young people, recognising their rights and making sure that the services they encounter understand the particular circumstances that can arise from life in an armed forces family. A growing number of Scottish councils have already formally adopted the Charter, and I believe that the time is now for Dundee to come and do the same. So therefore, my motion asks committee to do 4 practical things. Firstly, to formally endorse and adopt the Charter. Secondly, to ensure appropriate awareness of the needs and rights of forces children and young people when relevant council services are being developed and delivered. Thirdly, to promote awareness of the Charter through our schools and through relevant Dundee Partnership organisations. And fourthly, to ask the Chief Executive to engage with Forces Children Scotland about its practical implementation and promotion in Dundee. This is important because I do not want our adoption of the Charter to be simply symbolic. If committee does agree to this motion, we should ensure that it actually does lead to meaningful awareness across the council, and particularly within services that have contact with children, young people and families. So at its heart, the motion is very straightforward. It's about listening to children and young people, recognising their experiences and ensuring that Dundee is a city where forces families know that their contribution is valued and that their children are properly understood and supported. I hope that members from across the committee can support the motion. I'm pleased to move it, and I understand that Councillor Crichton will second me.
Thank you for that, Councillor Duncan, and I don't disagree with anything you've just said. I think the committee, I'm sure, would agree, and I think we'll go up to that in a second. But I think everything you've highlighted there, supporting the children of reservists, full-timers and veterans is really important within the city, and making sure we actually engage, and it's not symbolic at all. I think that's vitally important. And I think your 4th bullet point is pertinent. And I think it will be imposed and so implemented within the city and within our schools. And I think everybody will welcome that. So I'm quite happy to take that as an agreement if you're happy to. And I'll just ask if there's anybody who want to object. I don't see anybody coming in and to oppose it.
Sorry, I have a question.
Yeah. But I'll just ask if there's any questions or comments. And I'll come back to you, Councillor Crichton.
Sorry, I was trying to get something up in the chat, but it just wouldn't work. No, I haven't actually read this charter. That's a sort of a new one on me. Is it just half a dozen lines, or is there a full charter? Have we had it circulated.
Sorry, I'll bring in the Chief Executive just in a second.
Thanks, convener. So officers have reviewed the charter. Bailey Wright, Mrs May, should the convener allow, can give some details of it, and we're happy to circulate the charter and the link with the information to all elected members so that you've got the full details of this.
Yeah, I think that would be very helpful. Thank you.
Apologies, Bailey Wright. I just take it as read as people have read it. I looked at it for myself and I really don't see any issue with it at all personally. I think there's a lot to be said about that, but I'll bring in Mrs May just to make any additional comments.
Thanks, convener, and thank you for the opportunity just to say that as a Children and Family Service, we absolutely support the Charter because it very much aligns with the work we already do under UNCRC and Team Around the Child and Meeting Individual Needs. So I can confirm tonight that we have recorded just now in our system 126 pupils in our schools who have families working in the armed forces, whether that's regular, reserve, veteran or undisclosed. So we have that recorded and schools will know who these families are and will provide particular support around transition points. As we would be aware, children in the services often move schools more often than others. So there's particular support there, but also for life changes, loss, separation, when families are separated due to commitments abroad and so on. So big focus on our health and well-being. Also to just say that we already do all of this, but we would quite happy to look at it again and make sure that we can bring confidence to committee, but also to inform committee as well that we work in a national network of armed forces lead officers across all the councils through our ADES partnership as well.
Thanks for that support and reassurance. You okay with that, Helen? Yeah. Okay, thanks very much. I think I'm not seeing any objections to it, but Michael, do you want to come in a second formally?
Yes, I'll be brief, convener, because it's great to have cross-party support on this. I'm really pleased to second Councillor Duncan. And all I would like to say is the strength of the Armed Forces Children's Rights Charter is that it reflects the voices and experience of those children and young people from the Armed Forces families themselves. I think this is crucial. As Mrs May alluded to, in a school setting, it could mean that you're jumping from school to school and there could be instability there. So it's really just helping our young people in difficult situations if their parents are moving about from place to place, creating that stability in that culture. Of course, not all children experience that, but having that in place, in my view, is the right thing to do. And I think we should do this tonight. So I'm really happy to second Councillor Duncan.
Yeah, thanks for that. Bailey Keenan?
Yeah, just I'm happy enough to support this charter. A friend of mine is a submariner. And could be, he's left the Navy now, but he would have been away potentially 6 months at a time in a boat that could have been parked below the Forth Road Bridge. He wouldn't know where he was in the world. And when his father passed away, he didn't get told until the day he come off, the day before he was ready to come off. And at which time, everybody at home has went through a grieving process and he had to go through a grieving process on his own. If he'd had children that, would have seen their grandfather passing away, there is a whole host of emotional things going on in his child's life at that time, and the father's not there to support or the mother's not there to support because they're in the forces. I think it's the right thing to do is to adopt the charter and see how best we can look after children whose family are in the forces. I would, because, and I'll make this other comment, is that we've adopted an awful number of charters. I'm unsure of the number of charters and covenants that we've supported as a council. And I wonder if officers at some time would consider how we draw them together and make sure the best practice of them all is delivered across council. And it may well just help to keep that focus on the areas that we have adopted as practice that we would like to see in council.
Yeah, thanks very much for your comments. And I think the rights of the child is vitally important. This is in addition to that. But I think officers will take that in mind and take note with regards to bringing any further ones and wrapping them all together. I don't see any further. I presume that's from the last time, Helen. Yeah. Okay, thanks very much. I think we'll just take this as agreed and the officers to do as required as in the full 4 bullet points. Thank you. Next one, Molly, please.
Okay, thank you. Item 4 then is capital expenditure monitoring at page 7. This is for noting.
Committee asked to note the report shows the latest projected 26-27 capital outrun and positions. Councillor Coleman, please.
Thank you, Mr. Convener. Can I ask about the relatively low level of capital expenditure at this stage of the year? At the end of June, we had spent only 9% of the revised General Services capital budget, compared with some 34% at the same point last year. And we were already carrying forward 5.7 million as a result of slippage in last year. Are officers confident that the 40.1 million programme can be realistically be delivered this year? And are there particular projects where we already foresee a risk of further slippage into 27-28?
Thank you, Mr. Thompson.
Thank you, Convener, and thank you, Councillor Coleman, for the question. I think the latest figures in the report, officers are confident that the current projection for capital expenditure is accurate. In terms of the comparison to the previous financial year, it will be largely due to a number of significant and large capital contracts that were already on site the previous year, such as the campus, etc. So I think that will just be the reason for the variance in actual, but officers are confident in the latest projections and will continue to review that and provide updates to members throughout the year.
That's your question, Daniel?
Yes, thank you. Just being 31, I would have been elected very young to be a bailiff by now.
Okay. Thanks very much. Don't see any further questions or comments, so we'll take that report as agreed. Thank you. Move on, please, Will.
Thank you, Convener. Bear with me just a moment. Thank you. That then takes you on to item 5 at page 23, revenue monitoring. And before we can begin consideration of item 5, revenue monitoring agenda, I wish to draw members' attention to an error within Appendix A of the report. Due to an oversight, the figures in the second and third columns of Appendix A are incorrect. Please note this error does not affect the variances in the final column that are the most relevant for members' information in this report. This error has also no impact on the recommendations included within this report. Officers apologise for any inconvenience caused by this anomaly and will ensure this is corrected moving forward. The report is before you and you asked to agree the recommendations.
Thank you for noting the correction. The report provides the committee with the analysis of the latest projected 26-27 revenue outrun position both for general fund and HRA budgets and its impact on the council's overall services. Billy McPherson, please.
Thanks, Convener. And assuming my question is still correct, given what has just been said, the report indicates that around 2.2 million of the previously agreed 4.4 million workforce saving still remains to be allocated and acknowledges a risk that the savings will not be delivered in full this financial year. Can officers give an indication as to how much of the 2.2 million they can now realistically expect to achieve in 26-27, and what financial consequence will there be if the full saving cannot be delivered?
Thank you. I'll bring in Mr. Thompson again.
Thank you, Bailey McPherson, for the question. In relation to the paragraph at 5.9 for contingencies underspend, I can confirm that officers are confident that half of the remaining £2.2 million will be achieved in full in the current financial year. Therefore, the shortfall of £1.1 million is currently projected. That would have to be offset through other items within the overall budget, or indeed offset against reserves at the year end.
Thank you. Any follow-up, Bill McPherson?
No, other than to say, obviously, that has obviously an impact on where we sit at the end of the financial year, and savings have to be found. But I may continue the discussion off table with Mr. Thompson, but thanks for the response.
Okay, thank you, Bill. Keenan.
Put that on. Sorry, I suppose it's fairly similar to Billy McPherson's. The report itself, obviously, at £700,000 isn't too bad, but the narrative that's in point 5 and beyond obviously reads that there's a bit of work ahead and a bit of difficulties, in particular around parking. And £700,000 worth that's subsidised there at the moment, and we're not seeing the revenue coming in and indeed, obviously, the corporate fleet and the number of positions that the administration looked to cut but have been unable to. So, I'd welcome some comments from officers about how we're going to address these things, given that we've obviously heard on the workforce one what might be 1.2 over, but there's a number of other things that will be looked to be addressed. I'm just wondering how best we're going to do that.
Thanks for the question. I'd just like to highlight there's a number of reviews being done at the moment, which will be coming to committee in the near future. But I'll bring in Mr. Thompson, please.
Thank you, Billy Keenan, for the question. So I can confirm that, as you'll be aware, officers will continue to review the revenue outturn on a regular basis and report any changes to these variances to members on a regular basis. I think it would be usual to have a number of variances within such a large budget, £500 million. So it's not abnormal to see these variances. The report hopefully provides detail for members of some of the significant risks that the council is facing in these areas, and we will continue to keep members informed of any actions that are required to be taken in light of those factors.
Very much, and again, review monitorings there for a reason, and that's the importance of bringing this report to committee on such a regular basis. I don't see any further questions or comments, so we'll take that report as agreed. Thank you very much. Willie, please.
Okay, thank you. Takes on to item 6, page 37, the Chief Executive Service Plan, which is for noting.
The report updates the committee on progress made during financial year 25-26 in relation to the Chief Executive Services. Good progress has been made over the course of the year, with 54% of planned actions now complete. Some of the key achievements and developments of the service over the last year include integration of community cohesion actions into mainstreaming reporting, strengthened partnership working with Dundee Partnership Networks, continued engagement in Dundee Faith Forum, also increased public engagement without social media platforms or online content, including 176,000 engagements with content created to market the city, amongst a number of other things. And the committee is asked to agree with the report. Councillor Crichton, you're first, please.
Thank you, Convener. The report shows a very significant deterioration in stage 1 complaint handling. Performance has fallen from 81.8% to just 59.5% against a 90% target. Can officers explain what has caused this deterioration and what actions are being taken to get performance back towards this 90% target?
Thank you for the question. Mrs. Stoller, please.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Coleman. So we took a recent report to the Scrutiny Committee, providing a lot of detail on this. What we're seeing is an increase in number of complaints coming in. So we've had a significant increase, and that's in certain areas like housing and environment. So officers are trying to complete those complaints as quickly as possible. We're also seeing that the complexity of the complaints is increasing with the use of AI. So that's pulling in information around legislation, which means that officers are taking a bit more time to look at the legislation. Sometimes that legislation isn't Scottish legislation, and we're also having to seek some advice from legal as well. What we're doing to try and improve that is to make sure that officers have got as up-to-date information on complaints, so knowing where their outstanding complaints are, having lists of those, keeping the management team updated. We're also doing additional training with staff, so we've started to do more face-to-face training, giving them best practice examples of how to quickly deal with some of the straightforward complaints, and also liaising with children and families around. Sometimes there's delays because of school holidays, which means that some complaints can't be dealt with because they've still got to speak to parents. So we're trying to look at all avenues to improve that. What we've seen at the start of this year is, again, we've seen another increase, but performance hasn't dipped. So we're hoping that the actions we take during this year will see that come back up. and we're having a discussion in a bit more detail about that at the council leadership team tomorrow, to see what more we can do to try and improve that.
Thanks. Does that answer your question, Michael?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Oh, thanks very much. And as Ms. Scholder said, there's the regular reviews at the Scrutiny Committee, which is, again, another place where it could be questioned. Deputy Lord Provost, Al Nackler, please.
Thank you. Kind of one comment and then maybe two questions, if that's okay. I love that we've kind of written design a modern council, and then we spoke about engagements just on Facebook. I've heard that most young people now get their news from TikTok. So I'm just wondering if when we say Facebook, do we really mean social media, or are we kind of just concentrated on that one platform? Shall I go through my questions and then, is that okay? Just on the stage 1 complaints and the fact that you mentioned AI, I'm wondering, through training that's been coming in from other kind of parts of the council, is AI something that could help with the complaints in terms of ones that aren't complex and actually get that speed of information out? Is that something we're exploring? And then the last one, which is probably the biggest, is I'm kind of confused about how our equality outcome actions are not like 4 out of 47 actions. Now, I work quite closely with the qualities officers and they're doing fantastic work, but it only leaves us 2 years left. I guess I'm looking for reassurance that we're even close to doing it, to meeting all 47 actions. It's just, it's kind of a bit of a curveball knowing the work that's happening for that to be the case.
Thanks for the questions. I think I'll touch upon AI in the second, if that's okay. AI is really important with regards to the challenges that have been brought to the council. But I think anything we do from the council has got to be checked as well. It just can't be an AI answer and sent out. It's going to be scrutinised before it goes out again. So there's a wee bit of work involved in that as well. I'm sure Scholder will probably say similar, but I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you, Councillor Nackler, for your question. So in relation to AI, we are using AI in complaints, voices and different things like that where we can, and it can pull information together. But as the convener just mentioned there, we do have to do a lot of double checking of that. So, it is being used and we're looking to see what other automation we can do across systems to try and make things easier for people to answer. In relation to equalities, we're just in the first year. So next year is the mid-year point. So it's a 5-year plan for equalities. So next year we'll report on it's the second, the 2 yearly update, sorry. So next year we'll report on progress in relation to our equalities outcomes. We've added more actions in. So that does make the percentage look probably a bit worse because we've just added 12 new actions in relation to community cohesion. But a lot of the actions are moving forward, but they're not at complete stage because some of them are kind of longer term actions. But we will be providing a much fulsome update when we come back next April, and that's the kind of midpoint that we would normally report, and hopefully you'll see a much improved percentage progress.
Thank you for that. But just one quick question. The service plan is 23 to 28. So, what would be the maths around what year we're on?
So our service plan is 23 to 28, but the equalities mainstreaming report was only agreed last year, and that's a 4-year plan.
Right, thank you. No further questions or comments, so we'll take that report as agreed. Thank you. Lily, please.
Yes, thank you. It takes you on to item 7 at page 61, the Corporate Services Service Plan, which is also for noting.
Report provides an update on the third year of the 23 to 27 Corporate Services Service Plan, which details progress has been made towards achieving the targets and priorities for the plan during the year of 25-26. Some key highlights include the delivery of over 23 million in financial gains provisionally for Dundee residents by corporate services for the Dundee Advice Strategy Partners, development of implementation of the 24-27 procurement strategy, successful delivery of the May 26 parliamentary elections, and embedding an employee wellbeing support across council services through the continued development of the Wellbeing Ambassador Network. Any questions? Billy Keenan, please. Oh, sorry. Sorry. Okay, no. Councillor Coleman, it's yourself.
Thank you, Mr. Convener. The in-year council tax collection rate has fallen from 93.96% to 93.22% over 2 years and remains below target, while non-domestic rates collection is also below target. Can officers please tell us what measurable improvement they expect the new collections improvement programme to achieve during 26-27, and when will members receive evidence that the programme is indeed reversing the downward trend?
Thanks for the question. Mr. Thompson, please.
Thank you, Convener. Thank you, Councillor Coleman, for your question. As noted in 5.7 within the report, it's important to realise whilst the overall proportion of council tax collected during the financial year and also non-domestic rates has dropped, the overall sum has increased significantly. So if we look at council tax in isolation, £5.3 million of additional revenue has been collected for the council during that year. And the challenge remains is in terms as council tax levels increase, as they have done significantly in the last 2 years, for some individuals and families to continue to pay that. We continue to work with those areas, and as noted in the report, there's a collection improvement plan in the process of being developed. So happy to share the detail in terms of the areas within that collection improvement plan that will provide support in terms of developing and improving that percentage.
Thank you. Is that your question, Down?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Billy Scott, please.
I have two questions, please, Convener. The first one follows on from what Councillor Coleman was asking in respect of council tax. And I appreciate it's important that we know how much we're collecting in year, because it has an impact on that year's budget and cash flow and so on. But I would like to know also how effective the council is in making arrangements to recover council tax from previous years. And so it'd be good to see a figure as well as in year how much has been collected in total for previous years. So that would be a helpful figure to include. It might not fall into this report, but having that information provided will be helpful.
Thank you. Mr. Carr, please.
Apologies, Bailey Scott, and thank you for the question. So we actually have a really good understanding now of what our behaviour looks like against previous council tax collection. Also, what the residual debt looks like year on year and what that pattern of behaviour looks like. And what I'll do, if it's okay with the convener, is I'll circulate a performance or behaviour by performance along with this meeting, which should give a better understanding of how we collect against previous year's debt.
That's your question, Billy Scott?
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, I've got another question, but I've just realised I've put a whole load of Zs into the don't think I'd press the send button for those, so you won't see those. Sorry. Right. My other question is to do with the sickness absence figures, which, although they've fallen slightly, it's got a little bit better. It's still a huge figure, the number of sickness absence days per full-time equivalent, but just over 3 weeks, which is an awful lot. And I had a look back through previous these updates, and I pulled out from 2024 the update from there, and had a look at the actions that were taken in the history and latest note. And it's exactly the same update as we've got now in 2026, just a copy and paste of previous reports. So given that the actions we've been taking for the last 3 years of having very little impact on the level of sickness absence, what new initiatives are going to be in place to try and drive this down? Because the current policies we have seem to be making very little dent in the sickness absence level. And the quickest way that the council can save money and improve productivity is by getting the sickness absence level down.
Okay, thanks for the question. Ms. McGrath, please.
Thank you, Convener, and thank you, Bailey Scott, for the question. Yeah, this is certainly a trajectory which is one of the key priorities of the Council, and I want to give you assurance around that. Certainly something that we are in close connection with the corporate leadership team around. It's also something that's echoed across other local authorities within the country, and that's not to discount the issues that we have within Dundee specifically. So what we do and what we are currently doing at the moment is really looking at the data in a number of different ways, so that within that, if I can call it a Venn diagram, we can actually see what's happening within the absence, and specifically around long-term absence in addition. We are looking at it on a number of fronts so that we can apply the right levers to the right situations. So we want to make sure, crucially, that our managers are confident in how to approach some of these quite sensitive situations. So we're tackling manager performance, but also manager training. We want to make sure that our external supports are in place. So, for example, occupational health, we've got a 24/7 confidential employee assistance provider. And we've also got other routes, including organisations like Able Futures, which we are sharing with colleagues via our different communication styles. And thirdly, it's about peer support. So I know the report does mention the Wellness Ambassador Network, which is now sitting at 79 colleagues. And within that cohort, we have Tier 1 and Tier 2. The Tier 2 I mentioned because they have enhanced training around areas such as bereavement support, menopause support, and also in terms of mental health first aid training, all of which are quite pertinent to the demographic of our workforce. But more than happy to have a more in-depth discussion with you following this meeting if that's of help.
Thanks for that. And I think these type of initiatives do take time to come through, and hopefully they'll see that effect and the impact as you've touched upon, Bailey Scott. You want to follow up? Okay, that's great. Thanks very much. Bailey Keenan.
Sorry, I was looking to come on the next item, but I will ask a question on this one. This report obviously makes reference to the council tax collection being £3.12 at its current, and I think that's fantastic because it's about 50 odd pence down on what was expected, or so good news that we're collecting, and the cost of that collection is not costing me too much, or costing me a bit less than was anticipated. The question would be that I can recall previous reports that would give that level of detail with comparison against other authorities. So as if it was waste collection, if and other things where we put a cost on, that would have some level of comparison with the comparator authorities that we deal with in the Scottish average. So as if it was a case of what does it cost us to collect rubbish from someone's doorstep, what is it costing someone else? It allows for better scrutiny and allows us to be in a position to start pushing officers in the direction, go and visit the other council if they're doing much better than us. And I know it's not always like for like, but it's a good example, but it's only one cost that we've got in here or the whole report. So I would like to see many more of them. I'm sure these reports existed. We're maybe not reporting in that way anymore.
There's a useful resource on the LGBF website, which is really goes down to that detail and it goes down to specifics that may be worth looking at. But I'll bring in the Chief Executive on this.
Thanks, Convener, and thanks, Bailey Keenan, for the question. So the local government benchmarking report was considered at the City Governance Committee in June this year, and I will circulate the link to that report within those papers so that all members of committee have that detail. And if there are any specific questions that members may have, then they can contact Andrea Calder or myself.
See no further questions or comments, so we'll take that as agreed and move on to the next one, please, Willie.
Okay, thank you. Takes you on to item 8 at page 87, the City Development Service Plan. You're asked to give the recommendations.
Report provides an update on the progress made during financial year 25-26 in relation to the City Development Service Plan for 23 to 28. The plan contains 44 performance indicators. 82.5% of indicators in the plan have improved or been maintained since the last report itself. Further report represents indicators that are best performing, including number of publicly accessible EV charging points, percentage of Category 1 potholes repaired within targeted time, cost of maintenance per kilometre of roads, number of road and safety defects per annum, and proportion of internal floor and operational building in satisfactory condition. Bailey McPherson, please.
Thanks, Convener. The number of workless households, earnings relative to the Scottish average, and proportion of people earning below the living wage remain amongst the indicators furthest from target. We know that a number of targeted and cross-service interventions, including the whole family support approach, are being developed or expanded during 2026-27. Can I ask how confident are officers that these interventions will begin to produce measurable improvement in these specific indicators? And when should we realistically expect to see that improvement reflected in this performance data?
I'll bring in Mr. Presswood to answer that. Mr. Presswood.
Bailey McPherson, many thanks. I think it's a very challenging question that you've set, because the interventions that the council can do on topics such as this, I think we're only part of the equation. In fact, a fairly small part of the equation some of the time. I think it's important to observe that these are socio-economic challenges, and we're largely dependent upon the state of the economy nationally. So I think there are very important interventions that you've highlighted, whole family support, etc., and these will start to deliver improvements, but I don't believe they're going to resolve all of the problems that we have there, because of the state of the economy nationally.
Thanks for that, Bailey McPherson.
Yeah, I completely get that, Mr. Presswood. You're not entirely, if you like, master of all your surveying, obviously dependent on external factors. But what is good is that there are some approaches being taken, and, you know, I alluded to, as did you, whole family support, which I think is positive, and hopefully on the back of that we will see some improvement going forward in these particular indicators. But I'm grateful to Mr. Presswood for his response. Thank you.
Thank you. Bailey Keenan, please.
Like Bailey McPherson, I shared the concern about the number of workless households. I mean, you're looking at 8,000, you're probably looking at that's equivalent to no one in the Strathmartin ward works. So that's the level of the workless households across the city. It's almost one multi-member ward. So I really think there needs to be a focus on addressing that. The other question is in relation to page 96, where the current target for road maintenance per kilometre is £1,500, and we'll look to be delivering that at the current level around £400 cheaper than that. And I'm just wondering, how does that equate and land itself in the revenue savings, or does it equate in more roads being covered? Because I see the condition of our roads being quite poor, to be quite honest. As I drive down many streets, there may be no the actionable defect, but the car makes some rattling noises as it goes along the road. And I'm sure everybody feels much the same, where there's a lot of work that could be done on carriageways in the city.
I'll maybe comment on your car, to be honest with you, but again, I think there's important about employability. I think there's a lot of factors, as Mr. Presswood touched upon, it out with this council's remit, and it's all down to government and initiatives coming from both governments. And I think the National Insurance one's a good example of putting pressure on employability to start with. But I'll bring in Mr. Presswood with regards to the roads.
Chair, many thanks. I think in terms of the workless household indicator, the key challenge is jobs. It's securing adequate jobs. The employability service within the city are fairly effective. If you compare them, there's a number of benchmarks where you can compare with other similar councils, and we are fairly effective as a council. But the key thing that we are missing at the moment is job creation. So we actually need new employers in the city, and particularly new private sector employers, where there is a dearth. In terms of the road maintenance indicator, I'll hand over to Mr. Mullen to answer. Mr. Mullen.
Thanks, Convener, and thanks, Bailey Keenan, for the question. Yeah, the cost of maintenance per kilometre of roads is a local government benchmarking KPI. It doesn't actually, it correlates, well, the measure itself is influenced by a range of factors, which also includes winter maintenance expenditure as well. So because obviously the recent milder winters have resulted in a lower winter maintenance cost, so this has contributed to the reduced cost per kilometre figure as well. So it's not a direct correlation just purely to the maintenance budget element.
Good, thanks very much for the answer.
I suppose I'll look at what's the current value? What is that set? Was that set in a budget? If that was our current target of 1,500, it would still look to me like we're saving at some way. There might not be, continuous, but it looks like at this moment we're saving £400 per 1,000 metres.
I think it would depend on a number of factors and the costings with regards to costings of purchasing the materials, I guess, but I'll bring Mr. Mullenbach in.
Yeah, no, you're correct. I mean, it does revolve around a number of different factors. That 15,000 target was a target that was set by Solace in itself in terms of sort of best in class groups. So it's looking to actually bring that down lower. But I can understand where Bailey Keane is coming from, because there's two different flip sides to it. You can look at it as, is it less spend on maintenance, which should be higher, but it doesn't work in that relation. It's about actually bringing the level down low in terms of maintenance. So with that factored off the winter maintenance element towards that, actually brings the level down.
Bring in Mr. Thompson as well.
Thank you, Convener. Just to reflect, a number of these cost indicators will be based on targets that were agreed when the service plans were reviewed back in 2023. So I think there's maybe a piece of work for officers to take away and review those where there's cost implications in relation to what the target would be based on the budget rather than other factors such as Mr. Mullen suggested.
One final inter.
Well, I suppose I'm looking for something that I could better understand, and the member of the public, if he was reading that, could better understand. So if officers are going away and having a look at that, I notice when you look back at the report in 24-25, then we would be saving £1,000. No, we'd be saving, at the moment, based on 1,460, we'd be saving £1,000 per kilometre. So, it'd be interesting to know where the figure came from and how we report it differently for council, so as we have an understanding that isn't reflecting any kind of saving.
Okay, I think we'll also take that on board and maybe provide further detail to elected members to bear that in mind. Okay, switch on. That's great. I see. Oh, sorry, Billy Scott. My apologies.
Thanks, Convener. And again, apologies for the W's that have appeared in the chat there. For some reason, the keys on my laptop seem to be awfully sensitive and can't take the weight of the committee papers. A couple of the questions I had to ask you have already been responded to in answers to questions raised earlier by other members, but I'd like to ask about the percentage of journeys to work made by public or active transport. It would be good to have that broken down, please, into type of transport, whether it's by bus or bicycle, because in the previous report, we had the figure saying that only 1% of work commutes were by bicycle. So I would like to know whether that figure's increased or not since then. So it'd be good to have that broken down, please.
Mr. Mullen, could you note that for the future? Or can you give any detail now?
Yeah, no, thanks for that, Bailey Scott. You're happy enough to provide that information post-committee.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. Councillor Rome, please.
Thank you, Convener. I wasn't sure about coming in, but I just thought to come in very briefly just to thank officers both that work for the council and for the wider employability partnership for all the work that they've done, and not just for those who are working to get people into employment, but indeed those who work on our roads maintenance teams as well. There are some absolutely fantastic figures in there. Without a doubt, we've all got anecdotal stories about potholes, etc., but I think it really shows you the direction of travel, pardon the pun. The stats are improving and continue to get better, and indeed there's a lot of statistics right across the report that show improvement. Not all of them by any means, but I think we should really reflect on the positives in this report, which are many. So I just want to put my thanks to officers on record for what is overwhelmingly a very positive report.
Thank you for that. Councillor Anderson, please.
Apologise for not ending on such a positive note. Just on page 105, it talks about the people securing and progressing into employment through the employability pathway and shows quite a steep drop in the numbers, and there must be an explanation for this. I just wondered if the officers could explain why there's such a significant drop.
Mr. Cresswood.
Chair, yeah, I did have some discussions with the employability team this evening just to try and understand what we're seeing there. The analysis is quite complex, and we are going to bring forward a full report in the autumn if that's acceptable, which will set out the performance of the employability service as a whole, and I'll drill down into those figures a bit further if that's acceptable.
Thank you very much for that. That's your question, Heather?
Yeah, so there will be a follow-up report explaining what's going on.
Yeah, there will be a follow-up, and that'll be helpful. I see no further questions or comments, so take that as agreed. Thank you. Molly, please.
Thank you. Takes you on to item 9, agenda note at page 2, provision of insurance covers. You're asked to give the terms of the note.
It's quite clear what that means. Yep. Thank you very much. And that's the business. But before we finish, if that's okay, I'd just like to say a few words. Tonight is Judy Dobie's last committee after her announcement of her retirement from her post as Director of Leisure and Culture and Managing Director of LACD. A wee bit of history there, Judy. Are you okay? She joined the council in April 2000 as the section leader for Central Library, becoming head of Library and Information, and in 2011 then became Director, Managing Director in 2019. Over the last 7 years, Judy's worked with partners across the city and beyond to support and develop cultural and sporting facilities within the city. Judy is retiring, I believe, to spend more time with her family and plans to use some of the facilities at LNCD in her spare time. So I'd just like, on behalf of my group and the rest of the councillors, to wish you all the best for your retirement and thank you for your 26 years of service to the City of Dundee. I see Bailey Keenan would also like to add a comment.
Yeah, obviously I've spent a couple of years on leisure and culture, working alongside Judy, and think that some of the work that she's been doing and that Leisure and Culture Board's been doing will start to show through very shortly. And Judy will not be around to take the credit for that. So I think I'm going to give her the credit for that way in advance, so people starting to recognise the good work that's going on. I would have to say thank you to Judy for, I think that she's been the human shield for us as councillors. I think that Judy's taken an awful lot of flack for decisions that were made in council that weren't leisure and culture's making. I suppose, the closure of both golf courses has never went down well with the citizens of Dundee. And Judy, in her role in leisure and culture, seems to have taken all the bad press on that when I look at social media. I had a role that was playing in that, and I didn't convince the administration to change their mind. They went ahead and closed it. So on behalf of myself, the Labour group, and indeed obviously the administration, Judy, I thank you for taking some of that heat away from us directly. I think it's been unjust and unfair that you've had to put up with that. I hope it's not the reason that you're disappearing, and it is family reasons that you're doing that. Perhaps we should have been more supportive if you are leaving because of the bad flack that you've been getting at time to time. But nevertheless, I wish you all the best in the future. Have a great time with your family and have a long and happy retirement.
Thanks for that. I'm quite sure she'll join retirement with her family in the future and enjoying their resources in LNC. Councillor Coleman, please.
Thank you, Mr. Gavina. On behalf of the Liberal Democrat group, yes, I'd like to thank Judy for the work she's put in as head of Leisure and Culture Dundee. And indeed, in the time that I've been elected, I've always found Judy most helpful and prompt at replying to queries on behalf of constituents. And I'll echo what Kevin said. I think some of the flack that Judy has received has been grossly unfair indeed. I remember having a discussion with Judy that none of us here, and officers included, get involved in public service to be closing anything down or reducing any sort of service. But tough times ask for big decisions and strong leaders, and I think Judy has certainly been a strong leader in her time for leisure and culture, and we wish her all the best in her retirement. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. Bailey Scott, please.
Yeah, I'd like to wish Judy all the best for her retirement as well. I first came across her when she was responsible for libraries, and I bent her ear continuously about getting improvements there. I'm pretty sure that she's got a soft spot for Protty Ferry Library. But she's always been a very helpful officer. Whenever I've gone onto Teams and seen that she's showing green, I would ping her a message and say, "Can I have a chat?" And she'd fire straight back and say, "Yep," then I'd phone her. So very helpful. And I know the last few years have been pretty tough for her, and I hope she gets to enjoy her retirement.
Thanks for the kind words from everybody, and I think I'll give Judy the opportunity. Do you want to come back and say anything, Judy, or do you just want to sit in the corner and be quiet?
Just to say thank you very much for the kind comments. I've absolutely loved my job and loved working with everybody, both in leisure and culture and in the council, and obviously yourselves in this room. And it is genuinely to spend more time with my grandchild and family. So thank you very much for the words.
Thanks again. Enjoy your retirement. And that's the business for this evening. Thank you. Good night.